Oh, that's sure. Everyone, and welcome to another weekend at Locus. Kind of back from a short hiatus. To cut a long story short, I just didn't feel like streaming last week, but I'm back, and another person who's back is Apprentice 1215.
I'm back. Just like this game franchise is back. Only I've not been rebooted.
Yes, because as you can see in the background and in the title, it's Modern Warfare Remastered. Because there was a new Modern Warfare game announced.
Call of Duty hype. I can't believe I'm saying that in 2019, but Call of Duty hype.
Yeah, pretty much my thoughts as well. So bit on a sort of hype train for now at least, and
Cautiously optimistic.
yeah, hopefully it doesn't end up like Black Ops 4 for me, where I eventually realize that, oh no, I have to abort mission, jump out from the hype train while it was about to crash and burn. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time. um, so we have loads of game modes to choose from, which is both a blessing and a curse. Because I have no
Well,
idea
do
what
we
to
really?
play.
That's the thing, though. We have a lot of game modes to choose from, but based on the population of players in said game modes, it's going to be easier to find a game. It's going to be easier to find a game in either Team Deathmatch, Search and
Yeah.
Destroy, than anything else because everything else is like under 2% of the player base. Granted, I think this game's still pretty healthy, so even then, that's probably a lot of people. But
Yeah, it's I don't think it's likely that we will find a match of Sabotage or Headquarters,
no,
because
no.
they're barely played. However, I haven't played Prop Hunt in ages, so let's start with that.
Prop
Even
hunt's always a fun time.
Yeah, if it finds a game, of course. That's
Yeah, that's the
it's
thing.
saying
If
it's
it
saying
finds
on
a game.
my screen no games found, so that doesn't
Well,
bode
I,
well.
I just tend to ignore that because it'll say no
Yeah,
games found, 20 games found, 50 games found, no games found. It's like, well, what happened to the 50 you just showed me? So it's like just let it do its work.
yep. So we'll give it a moment or two and see if it finds a prop hunt match. Um, it's weird because they've had prop hunt in both World War II and Black Ops 4 now, but I don't think I played prop hunt in either of those games. Granted, I haven't played that much of Black Ops 4 because it's a trash game. uh, yeah. So, well, the new Modern Warfare is kind of the reason we're here to begin with. So, let's kind of jump into that discussion. I don't know what that was. Let's just pretend that never
An
happened.
attempt French? Question mark.
I feel it was a cross between French and Swedish potentially. So a unholy beast has been unleashed, and should never be seen the light of day. So yeah. Before jumping into the actual Modern Warfare discussion, because as we all know at this point, COD is a huge and popular game, even though it gets a lot of hate. Sometimes it's 100% deserved. Um, Sometimes it's not 100% deserved, but it's the popular thing, so it's popular to hate on as well.
The only
And
popular thing that actually deserves hate is Fortnite. Anything else, it's got its own merits that you can call good.
I will sort of agree on that one, even though I may come across as a hypocrite since I had a weird timing where I streamed Fortnite 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I was considering unfriending you on the PSN after that, but I joke, I kid. But
Oh, hey, I matched.
yeah, with
one
one
match.
other player.
Maybe it will actually go work. Anyway, as I was about to
Waiting for
say,
3 more players.
since I know we have, well, both me and Prentice have, how do I put it, interesting journeys with the COD franchise. And as we said in the beginning, we are, for now at least, optimistic about the new COD games. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of start off with why are we optimistic in the first place? And I'm gonna let you start off with that if you want to.
Okay, well, first of all, it's Modern Warfare. So nostalgia is hitting me, which is partly the reason I'm optimistic. Because as Loka alluded to, we both have an interesting history with how we got into Call of Duty, and then we've eventually sort of kind of fallen off of it a little bit. But the Modern Warfare trilogy in the first Black Ops game, when I think peak Call of Duty, those are the games I think of. So Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3. Those are the 4 games I think of when I think peak Call of Duty. After that, everything started to kind of go downhill in one way or another. So going back to their roots, quote unquote, with Modern Warfare is it is something that makes me optimistic. Like, oh, maybe they're going back to the Call of Duty I prefer, and not all of this running around with superpower exosuit nonsense that we've had in the last couple of years. Because it's interesting. The online reaction has been interesting the last couple of days over the fact that Modern Warfare is back.
Yeah, I backed out.
Yeah, we're not gonna find a game. You're right. So
yeah, I'm putting us into team deathmatch for now.
Yeah, we'll definitely find one then. But so because I don't think I've seen hype for a Call of Duty game this early on from, let's call them, rational people since maybe World War II a couple years ago when Sledgehammer was up to bat. Because when that was announced, there was some divisiveness of like, oh, they're just copying Battlefield. It's like, well, Battlefield kind of copied them. It's like, well, if you want to get technical, Call of Duty copied Medal of Honor. You go through the history of first-person shooter video games. But the idea that they were kind of starting to go away from the wall running and the exosuits, and they were going back to World War II. People were excited. I was interested. I didn't think I was going to pick up the game that year, and I did not. But I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're moving in a better direction. And then the game kind of came out, and it seemed like the reception was lukewarm, and people were kind of sort of let down because it's like, okay, this is literally every World War II Call of Duty game that came out prior to COD 4. It's just got prettier graphics. So,
yeah,
enemy helicopter right off the bat. So
that's a good sign.
And it's leaving. So it's kind of interesting seeing the reaction online for this new Modern Warfare reboot, because again, people are getting excited because they're going back to sort of kind of their roots. Because of course, it did start. It did. Oh, knife that guy. It did start in World War II, but and then it eventually moved to Modern Warfare in 2007 with COD 4. So, and that was really the game that turned Call of Duty into a juggernaut. Into when we say Call of Duty, everyone knows it as this big behemoth of a video game franchise. And you're dead. Oh, throwing it back up. That didn't work. And Call of Duty 4 was really the first one to be that, to be that really, really big game that allowed Modern Warfare 2 to be the highest, what's the exact phrasing? It's like the most successful entertainment launch of all time, and then Black Ops 1 became the most successful entertainment launch of all time, and then Modern Warfare 3 became the most. Wow, lots of grenades. This really is Call of Duty 4. And then Modern Warfare 3 became the. It's like up until I think maybe Black Ops 2. I think Black Ops 2 may have been the last one. Call of Duty games were becoming the best-selling and the most successful entertainment launches of all time, each outdoing the other up until I think Ghost was the only one that didn't. That was the first one that didn't become the largest thing. And let's remember, this is in an era where you've got where you're starting to come out with movies like Transformers 2 and 3, Avengers, the first Avengers movie, Iron Man 3. Movies like this that really started signaling the age of these movies can start making close to $2 billion worldwide, and a video game is beating them. So that tells you something about the video game. So, and I think maybe part of the reason the Call of Duty games have stopped being such successes and these runaway hits is because they started moving. It's an interesting conundrum. Because if you just keep doing what you're doing, then people are going to start saying you're just doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. You're becoming stale. Because when Modern Warfare 3 came out, that was absolutely in the conversation. This is a good game, but it's just more of the same. And to a degree, I agree with that. But it was refined more of the same, so I enjoyed it, and it still included new features like survival and new systems for multiplayer. And so then after that, I feel like it was a logical choice to move into the future a little bit, so you don't get people saying you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Now they sort of kind of still got that because, well, essentially at that point the gameplay did remain exactly the same, and it was just aesthetic change with all the futuristic weapons and stuff, but. It was starting to move things into a bit of a different realm, and then things really started to get off the rails with Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3 with the wall running and stuff, and then I think that was maybe changing things up too much. So they needed to change in order to ensure their survivability, but they maybe changed things too much to where the old crowd didn't exactly like it, but at the same time they still managed to find a new crowd, and now you've got 12-year-olds that have grown up with Call of Duty games where wall running is when you think of Call of Duty you think of wall running and robots and stuff, and it's like that. Back in my day we had boots on the ground and only 3 kill streaks and stuff like that. So seeing people getting excited about Modern Warfare coming back, obviously that's because these are the older people getting excited, because in like the main Twitter post from the Call of Duty Twitter account, you look in the comments and people are acting so excited, but then there's a couple of the little outliers. There's 1 or 2 little outliers where people go, yeah, but what about Battle Royale? And then they just immediately get jumped on by everyone else. Like, get out of here! We don't need Battle Royale. This is Modern Warfare. you don't know, kid. You weren't there, and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see the online response because of that. I remember seeing a tiny bit about it back in the day when this game was coming out, Modern Warfare Remastered, because although at the time, of course, it was packaged in with an Infinite Warfare, which was Infinity Ward's last game, and that was the only reason I bought that game, is to play this one, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people bought that game, was to play this one. And I think the amount of people playing the multiplayer of this game to this day is a big testament to that. And looking back, I think doing Modern Warfare Remastered was kind of their test. It's like, okay, after we're done with Infinite Warfare, if Modern Warfare Remastered is a success, do we want to make a new Modern Warfare game? And I think the answer overwhelmingly was yes. So they're kind of going back to the roots, but at the same time, it's ironic they are modernizing Modern Warfare, because you look at this game, it's got pretty graphics now, but it does feel it's funny. It's honestly is funny because it's called Modern Warfare, but it kind of feels old-fashioned in a way. Just not in graphics, because I mean this game is gorgeous. But oh, would you not do the noob tube? Die, Mr. Bad Guy. Doom on you, Mr. Tango. Afterlife. But yeah, it's like, because it does feel kind of old-fashioned with the plot. The plot is very basic and straightforward. Because of the 3 Modern Warfare games, Call of Duty 4 has the most simplistic plot, where it's essentially, hey, here's these Russian bad guys. Let's make sure they're teaming up with these Middle Eastern bad guys. Let's make sure they don't do bad things and stop them. Okay, sound good? All right, let's do it. And that was that. Oh, and you play as a guy named Soap. So that and then after that, it started to get a little more. It started to get a little more hectic with like plots of revenge and. Let's see. There's a guy around the corner here. Come on, it's up here. With plots of revenge and double crosses and knife in your back. So I'm just gonna. No one has the UAV. Awesome. I'll just drop that there then. You've got your. It's like Modern Warfare 2 is actually probably looking back. Because of all this hype, I recently went through and I replayed all 3 of the Modern Warfare campaigns. Host migration. Oh. That's not good. That's something, that's why don't we have dedicated servers in Call of Duty in 2019? Come on. It's like, what is this, 2007? Oh wait. So yeah, I went back and I played through the Modern Warfare campaigns. Oh man, this guy. Man, it really is old-fashioned. I do feel like we're back in 2007, because I just got noob tubed from a rooftop from a level 2 guy that doesn't actually have his own guns yet. It's like, oh man, so many memories here. So the Modern Warfare 2 is actually very, very convoluted and involved. I still managed to follow the story, but oh, hardline, yes. I used over 100 rounds there, but I got him. Thank you, LMG. But more host migration. Are you kidding me? I play the game often enough that this almost never happens, and of course, the one day we're streaming is when it happens.
Obviously.
And then some Modern Warfare 3 is a good mix between the two in the plot, where there is some convoluted stuff, but overall it is a little more straightforward. It's like, okay, here's this bad Russian guy that did some bad Russian things in the last game, and helped the bad Americans do bad American things. So we need to make sure that they're stopped for good, and we don't, and to make sure that the world doesn't blow up. So it was. Oh, where did he come from? Oh, he was right above me. Okay. What did he? Oh, that was I got beat to death with a wrench. So what is this? Ratchet and Clank? So so this game does feel a little old-fashioned nowadays, and honestly, the idea, as I was explaining, the plot of this game is essentially. It's like, well, there's some bad Russians. They're teaming up with some bad Middle Eastern people, and we as the British and the Americans got to stop them and make sure they don't do bad things. All right, let's go get them. That's the gist of the plot. And back in 2007, that was the gist of the world as it was. We were just 6 years removed from 9/11. The war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan were still kind of going strong at the time. And so, you wanna make a modern military shooter. That's kind of, that was the narrative at the time. Oh, everyone in the Middle East is bad. Let's go get those people in the Middle East because they rammed some planes into our buildings a couple years back. Let's see. Did you see that noob tube? You saw that noob tube.
Yeah.
Learn to aim, buddy. Aim down your sights. Did you not play the tutorial of the campaign? Anyway. So, in that sense, this game is a little old-fashioned and outdated. So that's another reason I'm optimistic. A very long-winded way of explaining why I'm optimistic is that, yeah, this game is a little old-fashioned. It's not exactly modern anymore, even though, yeah, you still got you still got modern equipment being used, helicopters and stuff. But in other ways, it's not so modern. So I think it is wise to reboot Modern Warfare because there has been so much that has changed in the what's it been 12 years since this game originally came out back on PS3 and Xbox 360, 2007 to 2019. That sounds about right. 12, 13.
Oh, like that.
There has actually been so much that's changed that it does sort of kind of warrant a reboot. And to go off of that, it's like the story of the Modern Warfare 3 wrapped up. That kind of wrapped up the story in a nice bow. I've been satisfied with that ending for years. From 2011 onward, I've always been satisfied with that ending. So I have not been. So I've always been kind of. That's why I've actually been okay with Infinity Ward trying other things, like Infinite Warfare, or what do you mean Airstrike not available? Oh, I was too slow in using it. So no hard use it. That's why I was okay with them trying new things with Ghosts and Infinite Warfare, even though I don't think the results were really that good. Because let's face it, despite the fresh coat of paint, Ghost was pretty much Modern Warfare 4.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that it had new characters and it. Yeah, it's like for all intents and purposes, it was Modern Warfare 4 because they took that concept of Ghost from Modern Warfare 2 with the Skull Balaclava and just was like, hey, what if there's an entire unit of these guys? And it's like, okay, that works. And then it was set sort of kind of in the future, but at the same time not. It was still pretty modern, even though there was some more advanced tech. But the plot of that game didn't really make too much sense. There's that stupid after credit scene, which I think you don't really like all that much, Loka, just based on the way you were talking the other day. I brought it up and you go, don't mention that. So that's why I'm glad Ghosts is Ghosts and not Modern Warfare 4, and they had tried to shoehorn in Captain Price or make it a prequel for Ghost from Modern Warfare 2 or anything, because that was originally what people thought. It was going to be called Ghost. It's like, oh, it's a prequel to Modern Warfare 2. Nah, it's a completely new thing, kind of just using that concept. So and because it wasn't that great, that's why I'm glad it didn't turn out to be Modern Warfare 4. So, but the last time they made a Modern Warfare game was in 2011. It's been a good while, almost 10 years at this point. We're just 2 years away from it being 10 years. This is the 10-year anniversary of Modern Warfare 2, for goodness sake. So, rebooting it now, I think, and it's funny. It's at this, just based off of that trailer, which I guess we'll kind of get into the trailer here in a bit. But the trailer kind of makes me feel like that this is the dark and gritty Modern Warfare reboot, which is kind of ironic because Call of Duty 4 was sort of kind of the dark and gritty Call of Duty reboot. So it's come full circle. It's come full circle. So it's like that's just from a story and gameplay perspective. We're not even talking about the other stuff, like there's no season pass, cross-play, other stuff like that. So it's all that stuff looks very promising. So yeah, that's why I've been talking for a while, but that is a very involved reason why I am. But I think there's a lot to talk about with this game, and at this point we still actually don't know too much. So a lot of it is kind of just being left up to speculation. But that is a very long-winded way of saying that yes, I am cautiously optimistic, and the reasons why.
Yeah. Well, there was actually a lot of talk even about the new one there. I was thinking about trying to frame into even before they showed the trailer and.
Could not migrate host.
Oh. But I'm
Guess we gotta find a new lobby.
But I'm in the lobby.
Oh, I'm not. I'm back on the main screen.
Oh.
Oh, well, it does say 1 out of 18 players, but we're both here, and it says you're the party leader.
Okay, that's weird. I'm backing out.
All okay, right. Now it says 2 of 18 players, so I guess you can find that. That was weird.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking about how to frame into, as I said, why I was feeling some sort of excitement before they even showed the trailer and before it was officially announced what this year's COD could be.
Yeah, because we were actually really waiting for it to be announced. We're like, why haven't they announced it yet? Come on, let's go. Because I think that is rooted in the nostalgia for the Modern Warfare series. And it's like, well, the rumors are saying it's going to be Modern Warfare, so it's like I'm kind of excited. I want to see what it is. So.
Yeah, that's part of the reason for why I also was excited, but also because I've compared my my relationship to this series and how I feel about the individual games in the past in different places, and this comparison might be out of date since I don't know if the new kids watch Friends these days. But
well, I've not seen the show, but my sister, who's a couple years younger than me, has watched all of it because it's on Netflix, and so and a lot of other people that I'm acquainted with have streamed it all because it's on Netflix. So it seems like it was a thing back in the day. It was popular. It died out, and now it's seeing a resurgence because it's easily available. So I think there might be more people than you think that will actually have an idea of what you're talking about.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was really popular in the 90s and has a large following. I was thinking more about the new kids who are growing up playing Fortnite, that type of kids.
Oh, kids. Okay.
Yeah,
like today's 12-year-old and stuff. I gotcha.
Yeah. So
yeah, they may not know because they're too busy doing their stupid little floss and default dances at school and T-posing to really care.
Yeah, because I've always, or well, not always, but for a long time compared my view on this series with hold on.
Today's stream is brought to you by Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered. Relive the classic Call of Duty experience as reimagined for the current day consoles. Just $40 at your nearest game store for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. We're not actually sponsored. I'm just doing this to fill the dead air because obviously Loka's had to go and do something.
All right. Just had to help with something else.
Don't worry, I filled the dead air by saying we were sponsored by Call of Duty 4.
Yeah, I heard you were you were saying things.
Okay.
I
didn't know if you completely put down the headset or not.
I heard things were said. I didn't hear what exactly. But anyway, I've for a long time compared my relation to the COD series with the relationship between Ross and Rachel from Friends. Trying to think of a more modern example, but the only newer example I can think of would be How I Met Your Mother, and that's essentially a Friends rip-off. So for those of you who haven't seen Friends, those two characters are very on and off for the entirety of the series, and that's how I've been with COD for a long time, because I actually started out with this very game back in 2008, it must be, because there are a lot of important things I can't seem to remember, but what I can remember is the order of the first couple of games that I bought for each console. COD 4 was very, very early on in that regard, so I actually remember that not only that I bought it in 2008, but I also bought it on the same day I bought Metal Gear Solid 4. I don't know why I remember things like these, but oh well. And it was one of those cases where I had heard a lot of great things about the game, but I wasn't exactly sure what to expect at the same time, weirdly enough. And then this game, like, already from the beginning just blew me away with how first how good the campaign was, because to put it simply, I had at that point never played something that was so cinematic in a sense, while also being, I don't know, it just clicked on pretty much everything I would want from a shooter at the time, because it was this perfect mix between a more arcadey shooter. Oh, I can't believe I didn't notice him, nor that he wasn't able to kill me since he had the advantage, but oh well. Let's see. Yeah, so it had that arcadey sense, but it also had just small doses of the tactical shooter and the more authentic and realism that I had started to get from, because I think just prior to COD 4 I had started getting into the Clancyverse with the Rainbow Six games, and I may have read one of his books at that point. I can't remember. So it was just one of those games where everything clicked, from the single player campaign, like with the story and the characters and the multiplayer, of course. I mean, heck, just the fact that I'm still playing this in 2019 through a remaster probably says a lot about how much I enjoyed that game. And let's see. I'm not gonna talk about each and every individual COD game and what I think about it. But
Chapter 1, Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Yeah. I guess Modern Warfare 2 might be relevant, at least, although I'll keep that brief. It was one of those weird things in that well, at first I was super excited, of course, because it was the sequel to one of my favorite games at that time. But then I was playing the campaign, and it was one of those, I thought it was great and disappointing at the same time, because as I said, one of the reasons why I loved this game was that it had a sense of realism, and some of it was still in the sequel, but to put it this way, if Modern Warfare 1 was a Tom, wow, I didn't see him. If Modern Warfare 1 was a Tom Clancy thriller, Modern Warfare 2 was
Yeah.
That isn't to say that's a bad thing. I kind of grew on the game while replaying it a couple of times, and even though it has that weird thing about it, I do still think it's a great game. It's just that initially it was just weird for me to play because it was familiar, but at the same time not familiar in a sense. And then I would say after Modern Warfare 2 and the original Black Ops, that was when I was okay. I'm starting to feel a little bit tired and all that. Didn't jump on either Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 2 until later in both cases. I think it may have been the summer after each release, which was when I was like, oh, I'm actually back on track. So I'm actually looking forward to COD 2013, which happened to be
And
Ghost.
look at how that turned out.
Yeah, which I mean, granted, I ended up getting that anyway, but way later because it was just, what even is this? And then sort of came back with Advanced Warfare, and then I have played pretty much. Well, pretty much. I have played every major game released since Modern Warfare 2. However, my feelings for the series has kind of how should I put it? Well, I suppose it's just that the today's COD games just doesn't have like I don't have as strong as feelings about them compared to the older ones, which I played a ton of and thought were great games overall. And then like everything since Ghost has kind of been up and down, where there's always been something I've kind of been able to appreciate with each game, but they've never been.
Advanced Warfare had Kevin Spacey. Oh wait, hold on, we can't appreciate that anymore.
Well, spoilers for Advanced Warfare. You do get to throw him down a burning building, so it's okay.
Oh well, I suppose that could be cathartic for a lot of people. So enjoy that after all.
Yeah. I was about to go on a side note there, but actually maybe not a good idea. But yeah, there's always been something I've been able to appreciate it, but about the subsequent games, with the exception of Black Ops 4, I think that's the only one that I don't think there's anything about it that just sticks out as great to me. It's just I don't even know what to say about that.
There's Battle Royale and then Black Ops 3 multiplayer.
Yeah. Of course, World War II was sort of like that for me at first, but I don't know. It's kind of grown on me since, but it's still, as I think you put it, when we started, that it was pretty much every World War II game ever made. Still some things I can appreciate it, but as I've said like a couple of times already, I'm really just reiterating a lot of stuff. It's just one of those.
I mean,
where
honestly, with World War II, I feel like it would have maybe been a better idea to do a remaster of the original Call of Duty game and release it that year.
Yeah, that might actually have been a wise choice.
I mean, everyone would have gone, "Wow, this is really dated," but I was like, "Hey, this is where everything started. That's kind of cool."
Yeah, and that actually brings up a point, because as I said, like the earlier games I have a lot of strong feelings about, but I can't say the same about the newer ones. Even though I've been able to enjoy certain aspects of most of the newer games, like Black Ops 3 is one of my most played multiplayer games this generation, because
Trash campaign, oddly
yeah.
good multiplayer, which is surprising.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Even I think it's good.
yeah, but I just remember when you brought up the original Call of Duty, because earlier this year I was at a YouTuber slash streamer by the name of Sorcerer Dave decided to do a little bit of Call of Duty marathon on his Twitch channel. So he was playing the original Call of Duty, and watching that stream made me realize how different today's COD is compared to the older ones, because that one, it may not have aged well in some regards. It looks alright even today, but you can also tell it's a game from 2003 or something like that. But it just had, I don't really know how to describe it. It just had this sense of, like a genuine sense about wanting to not just do what was a typical World War II shooter at the time, aka the Medal of Honor series, where granted those older games were good as well, from what I've heard. But
well, the only reason Call of Duty exists is because of Medal of Honor. Is because the Infinity Ward was made up of a team of devs who used to make Medal of Honor, and they wanted to go make their own shooter without EA looming over them. So they signed up with Activision, made the first Call of Duty, and then Medal of Honor slowly died.
yeah, rip Medal of Honor.
And that's another thing I want to say just really quick, because I've thought about it a couple times, but I keep forgetting about it, and I've thought about it again because it's something about the new font for Modern Warfare and the way, and for the reboot, and the way the cover is presented, which I'm assuming is going to be the box art. It feels very Medal of Honor Warfighter to me. Something about it I can't explain, but it just kind of like this kind of. I feel like I've seen this before. Wasn't this kind of feels like Medal of Honor Warfighter? Anyway, continue.
Yeah, because I mean, at the time, a World War II shooter was essentially Medal of Honor, and it's so weird to think about it, where modern CODs are just kind of rehashing old stuff in a sense. But the original game was kind of revolutionary in that it wasn't this one-man army first-person shooter. I mean, granted, it wasn't precisely a tactical shooter like Rainbow Six or something like that, but it still had a sense of that you were just one soldier among many, and the fact that you could play as not you weren't just storming the beaches of Normandy.
3 kills. Ouch.
Oof, yeah, I wasn't paying much attention on the actual game. But it wasn't just, oh, we're gonna storm the beaches of Normandy for the millionth time. We're also gonna play as SES operatives going behind enemy lines.
Behind enemy lines, yeah.
And the Soviet soldiers rushing the Red Square without a weapon, even though that's historically inaccurate, since that well it happened, but not in the Second World War. So yeah, I
could not migrate host.
Oh.
Again. That's weird.
So you're
I'm back at the main screen again.
That's weird, because on my screen you're in the lobby.
Ha.
Oh, one of our party members lost their connection to the lobby host. We followed him back to but there's no party anymore. Alright, I can.
I've still got you on my screen.
That's weird because I don't have you on my screen. Let's see if we can fix that.
Maybe if you back out.
Well, I'm in the main screen.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll join in
Um,
game session.
Yeah, so and let's see, let's play something that's not team deathmatch. Question is what?
Kill confirmed, maybe.
Yeah, we can do. Oh, wait.
I'm really surprised. I'm surprised kill confirmed is not. It does not have that much of a player base because because when it was introduced in Modern Warfare 3, I thought it was better than Team Deathmatch because it's Team Deathmatch but with an objective besides kill things. So
Yeah.
it added that extra little bit of strategy of running around trying to collect the dog tags as well. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a very long-winded way for me to say that there was this certain thing about the older COD games that really resonated with me, whereas the modern COD games is something that I have likened to McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, that's an apt description.
It's
not good for you, not particularly good, but it's almost sort of kind of a comfort food.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us back to the new Modern Warfare, where based on what we've seen, based on the different articles that I've read about what the game journalists have seen, it actually seems to be a return to form to the COD that I knew when I first started playing COD, which is why I'm, for now at least, excited. Also, I have no idea what Fighters Flies F is talking about. One Nemo. I don't know, I haven't found Nemo if that's what you're asking.
I think we need to go talk to some sea turtles, ask them if they've seen Nemo.
So, yeah, as you said earlier, or has been mentioned, the new Modern Warfare is it's weird. Okay, more weird messages. And I completely dropped the ball. Oh yeah, it's been weird trying to follow it because everyone, us included, has assumed it was gonna be Modern Warfare 4 because, well, that seemed to be the more likely choice. One being that the last two Infinity Ward games, i.e. Ghosts and Infinite Warfare, didn't do so well. So
and technically speaking, it is still Modern Warfare 4 in the case that it is a fourth Modern Warfare game from the developer that made 3 previous. It's just that it's not Modern Warfare number 4.
Well, yeah. And I was kind of... Actually, no, I don't know if I was getting exactly there. Also, I have no idea what's going on in chat right now. Reese, E. I have a bad feeling about this, or not bad feeling.
Wait, spell that. I feel like that may be one of my fellow moderators on the TTV message boards.
Let's see. It's little r, little e, big S, and then just individual messages saying E.
Okay,
One.
never mind.
One in big letters. What is this? One again.
Because there is a...
I'm sensing either spam or a bot. So
Possibly.
let's see. Yeah, it's just says the same when I. Okay, I'm gonna use the powers of the Infinity Gauntlet and send you to Solitaire. There we go.
Re.
And we're not finding any kill confirmed matches, which is weird.
Nope.
Okay, what other games can we? Any fun weekend warfare?
What? Yeah. What's this weekend's weekend warfare?
That's the thing. It doesn't rotate anymore. It's 5 game modes in there permanently. So we got snipers only, RPGs only, demolition, and capture the flag. And there's slasher, but can't play that because we're in a party.
What are the player counts like?
Less than 5% on all of them.
Well, I mean that less than 5%. Oh wait, less than 5%, not 5%. I don't know. We could try one of those and see if it works. If not, I think we're probably just stuck with team deathmatch.
Yeah.
Unless we wanted to try search and destroy, but that's a little more. I mean, that's just Rainbow Six Siege Light essentially.
Yeah,
so
and
a little more involved.
Yeah, and I think as long as we're in the discussion, I've probably not a wise choice to play search and destroy. Although at the same time we've had some great discussions when playing Siege, but anyway.
I mean, let's think really quick. Let's think back to that one time we were streaming Siege, and we correctly predicted that this year's Call. Well, granted, it wasn't exactly necessarily a hard prediction, but we did predict that this year's Call of Duty would be a Modern Warfare game. I said it was going to be Modern Warfare 2 remastered, and that would be it. But I mean, it's still a Modern Warfare game being released, so we can look back and go, "Hey, we were kind of right." Sweet.
Yeah, and even back when I think this was when we played Black Ops 3 on with the TTV PSN fan community. I think even back then I was predicting a Modern Warfare game, which I was about to say, oh, I don't like, where even was I before the whole strange things happened? But now I remember. We all assumed it was going to be Modern Warfare 4 because neither Ghosts nor Infinite Warfare did particularly well, so I didn't. I thought it was safe to assume that Activision wouldn't trust Infinity Ward with trying to create a new sub-series and force them to go back to the Modern Warfare series, kind of as with the fairly new meme template from Avengers Endgame. You couldn't live with your own failure. Where did that bring you?
So where did that lead
to
you?
Modern Warfare.
Back to me.
And I've completely dropped the ball again there.
Well, while you gather your thoughts, what I think is interesting is that, as you said, and I agree with this, I don't think Activision trusted Infinity Ward to do a new sub-series. Because it's like, well, Ghost didn't do it. And I think maybe the only reason Ghost really sold anything at all is because of the idea behind it. It was like, hey, that's banking on some nostalgia because Ghost from Modern Warfare 2. And then, of course, it was when the new consoles came out, so people had to play something on their new boxes. Yeah. That's really the only reason I put a lot of time into Ghosts, because it actually, in the first couple months of the PS4's lifespan, Call of Duty Ghosts actually had a very active and thriving ecosystem of players that actually played the game as it was supposed to be played, and I was actually getting Modern Warfare 2 and 3 flashbacks of how well the games were played. But then after about March of 2014, somewhere in there, it started, people started jumping around and spinning with their sniper rifles again. I'm like, okay, nope. It's starting to die again. It's starting to get bad. So, yeah, I feel like Activision probably didn't trust Infinity Ward. with a new sub-series, but I feel like they from what we've heard in these reports, it doesn't seem like, and this is another reason I'm optimistic, is that it doesn't seem like Activision forced them to go back. It seems like Infinity Ward made the decision themselves to go back. Because Modern Warfare Remastered. Blast it! It's going to be so annoying. Modern Warfare Reboot has been cited as a passion project for Infinity Ward. This is something that they actually really, really care about. I mean, it's not like they didn't care about Ghosts or Infinite Warfare, but it's like it seems like that they're viewing this new game as very special. And they do have a reverence for the older games. Because this is something that I don't know if we want to get in now or if we want to hold off and talk about it a little bit later. But the fact that they are rebooting it, and kind of the way that with the reboot we're getting Captain Price back. Which again, if you're rebooting it, then you reboot the characters, which is again good because Price's story ended in a good way at the end of Modern Warfare 3. It'd be weird to try to bring him back for another sequel, so it's like rebooting, okay, probably the smart move. But this Price really is rebooted because it seems he's a lot younger than the Price we knew in the older games. Because in Modern Warfare 2 and 3, Soap often referred to him as an old man. It's like Modern Warfare 2, you get him back from the Gulag, and Roach and Price are behind enemy lines in Siberia, trying to infiltrate the Russian nuclear submarine, and they spot some attack dogs, and Price says these dogs are like pussycats compared to the dogs in Pripyat, and then Ghost or not Ghost, Soap says it's good to have you back, old man. Then fast forward to Modern Warfare 3. You're in Africa with Yuri, playing as Yuri, trying to figure out where these shipments Makarov has been ordering are coming from, and Price says, "Soap, try not to die this time." And Soap laughs and says, "You just worry about yourself, old man." Because because Price is Soap's mentor, there's enough of an age gap there that while Price is probably no more than, I would say, 55, and that's probably maybe even stretching it. That is still kind of old for a soldier. So Soap calling him an old man is very appropriate. I always felt that Price was kind of a father figure to his troops in the Modern Warfare trilogy. This new Price, from what very little we've seen of him, he seems a lot younger. And the big basis I have for this is what we're assuming is going to be the cover art for the game. Where you have the trailer and everything, and it says Modern Warfare, but then it's like the splash screen at the very end, where it says it's like coming October 25th, pre-order now. Click here to watch other videos and stuff, and you've got Captain Price standing there, with the words Modern Warfare behind him, and you can't even you can tell it says Modern Warfare, but you can't even read the full thing because he's standing in front of it, and he's not wearing his traditional hat in that image, even though we do see him wear it in the trailer. So he does retain his classic look, but he's not wearing his classic hat in that image, and he's in the way he's standing, and just his general design. He looks a lot younger. Like maybe he's 30 years old tops, probably somewhere closer to the 25 to 30 range. He looks like he's obviously an experienced soldier, but he's a lot younger than we've known him. A lot. Because for one thing, this new Price is ripped. He's got some big old biceps in that image, and then he's got a shaved head. Honestly, the image reminds me a lot of like if a professional wrestler decided to cosplay Captain Price. That's what that image makes me think of. So that's something I find interesting about this Price and rebooting it. We're playing again. Is that he's going to be at this point we might just stick with team deathmatch.
Yeah.
The rest of the game modes are just not played, obviously.
Not even domination, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be played back in the day, back when the game first came out. But this is—let's remember, this is coming close to a 3-year-old game at this point. So
Yeah.
I suppose it makes sense at this point. But granted, I'm still surprised there is a community at all. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess the people that like this type of gameplay for Call of Duty nowadays, they play this, and the people that like the newer gameplay for Call of Duty, they play Black Ops 3.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, so I feel like that's very interesting about Price is that it's the Dark and Gritty Call of Duty reboot of the Dark and Gritty Call of Duty reboot, and to do that, they've aged Price down, and he's frag out, and that was a bad idea, and now they've made him younger, so I feel like that's very interesting. So because it's funny. Soap always struck me as being being at like the 30-year-old range. Oh, what? How did that miss? Okay, he's dead. Never mind.
All right. If you're, I hate to interrupt you, but if you're gonna spam a chat, I'm sending you off to solitaire again. That's 2 strikes, 3 strikes, and you're out. All right, back to. What you were saying.
So you never actually see Soap's face in the original game because he's the silent protagonist in Call of Duty 4. He doesn't actually have any defining characteristics in that game except for what you decide to give him because you are him. Modern Warfare 2 and 3, we actually get to learn who Soap is as a character, and he's very much the early 30s commando. Special ops soldier. Come on, dude, die. There you go. Good boy. So now and Price was his older mentor. So now Price is probably still going to be maybe a mentor figure to you, but yeah, Price is now the age that I would assign Soap in the earlier games. So they quote Soap as being fresh out of selection in at the beginning of Call of Duty 4. That famous line, what kind of a name is Soap? Had a Muppet like you pass selection. And so I wonder if Soap is going to be even younger in the new game, if he even gets much of a character at all, because he may just be a silent protagonist again, and it's like he's not really a character. There's all these reports saying, "Oh, Soap is going to be a returning character in the reboot." It's like, well, is he really going to be a character, or is he just going to be a silent protagonist?
That's the question.
I just like the fact that we're getting a rebooted version of Soap as well, even if he does turn out to be just a silent protagonist. He doesn't necessarily. I'm fine with that, but it'd be cool to see maybe this version being a younger and experienced Soap. That is very new to the kind of special ops commando SAS type of combat, and not just. So we'll see. That's something that I found very interesting, and that's really that's kind of all the most concrete information we have on the game, and it's not really that concrete at all. So I find that very interesting.
Yeah, and that 2 points that I thought of. One of those was one that was forgotten, but now has returned. One, just the fact that Captain Price is back is just really a big return to form for COD, since back in the day he was in every Infinity Ward COD game. He was in the original Call of Duty.
That's why I call Call of Duty 4 the Dark and Gritty Call of Duty reboot, because because as you were saying, it wasn't just a World War II game. It was also the SAS going behind enemy lines and stuff with Captain Price, and then Call of Duty 4 is you've got your Americans and Beast, but then the rest of the campaign is going behind enemy lines with the SAS, with Captain Price. So it's like it's the modern. So, whoa! I just had a big old lag out.
Yeah,
You still there?
your audio was cutting out a little bit, but I'm hearing you fine now.
I teleported on top of the train. I teleported on top of the train and I got sniped.
Oh,
I don't know how that happened.
that's bad.
One moment I'm walking and the next I get sniped. So I was saying is that yeah, I mean the original Call of Duty was playing as partly playing as the British and going behind enemy lines with Captain Price, and then Call of Duty 4 was playing. You know, you got your Americans invading the Middle East country and everything, but you're also going behind enemy lines with Captain Price and doing commando work. So I mean, Call of Duty 4 really is the dark and gritty modernized reboot of the original Call of Duty. So it's very funny that now we're getting the dark and gritty reboot of the dark and gritty reboot.
Yeah, which actually is a nice segue for a thought I was gonna talk about, because as I said earlier, at first it seemed to be Modern Warfare 4, and then I think it was some YouTuber or something on Twitter that said next COD game is gonna be called Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Yep, that's the title. And then Jason Schreier from Kotaku confirmed that, and then suddenly it seemed to be less a direct sequel to Modern Warfare 3, but more of a soft reboot. So.
Which isn't even the case. I would call it a hard reboot at this point.
Yeah,
it's a hard reboot. A soft reboot is if it still counted Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3 as happening, but then we just focus on new characters, or even my hypothetical for what the plot of a Modern Warfare 4 could be is that you know, Captain Price isn't in it much, if at all. Like maybe we don't see him like an actor, and it would. Whoa.
Oh, you're lagging out.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'm back. And then, so Captain Price wouldn't really be in the game at all, if maybe just an after credit scene at the end of the game. And then we would, you know, in my dream world, we would be focusing on the U.S. Army Rangers from Modern Warfare 2, so we'd get more of Sergeant Foley and Ramirez. And what are you doing camped up here, buddy? And Ramirez and Corporal Dunn. Again, we'd get more of them. We'd get to kind of see the aftermath of World War III and how, and you know what the aftermath of that war was like, and some threat that they've got to mop up following, you know, the ultranationalists trying to take over the world and stuff like that. And it's because at the end of Modern Warfare 2, Dunn says, so when are we going to Moscow? Yeah, since you know you literally just got done liberating the White House. And then Foley says when the time is right. Well, we from the events of Modern Warfare 3, we know they never went to Moscow. So it's like, you know, do any of those characters still harbor some resentment for the Russians? You know, it seems like it came to light that Makarov literally took over the entire nation by kidnapping the president and holding his daughter hostage and all that stuff. So it was like one man that managed to trick an entire nation into going to war. So you know, it's like, would they be? Oh, it's like, oh, okay, it was just one maniac and everyone was duped. We don't harbor any resentment or anything. Yeah, I've still got some of those questions. So that was kind of an idea of where I thought potential Modern Warfare 4 could go. But then they started calling it. So that was like, okay, maybe that's where we get a soft reboot. You know, that's why they're just calling it a Modern Warfare 4. But I wish we would learn terminology better, because from what we've seen, this is not a soft reboot; it's a hard reboot.
That's where I was getting to. Where at first it seemed to be a direct sequel, then it was a soft reboot, and then they don't use the term reboot, but they call it a reimagination of the original Modern Warfare,
which is just another word for reboot.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't want to use the word reboot.
See, because that's the interesting thing about the video game industry. I was thinking about this the other day, is that whenever you go to make a movie in Hollywood, you've got either an original movie, a sequel, or a remake of an original story, i.e. every movie Disney comes out with nowadays. It's either a sequel or a remake. Then, with the video game industry, you've got either an original game, a sequel to the sequel, but not a sequel to the original game, or then you've got reboots, then you've got remakes.
Yes.
And then you've got remasters, which are the original thing that came out, but re-released with prettier graphics, like we're playing right now. And reboots happen. I think I didn't mention reboots when I was talking about movies, but that's obviously a thing that happens too. No, I mentioned reboots. Well, I called them remakes. Remakes and reboots are sort of kind of the no, they're not necessarily the same thing. But anyway, you get the idea. But with video games, you got like two or three extra options for how to make a product. So that can sometimes make it confusing, because everyone's going, oh, this is it's a remake. It's a remake of Modern Warfare, of the original Modern Warfare. It's like, but didn't that come out like 3 years ago? Why are they remaking the remake? It's like, no, it's it's a reimagining. Okay, well, is it a reboot or a remake? What is it? It's a reboot. It's a reboot. Yeah. Can we please make this simple to talk about? Which I get why they call it Modern Warfare, because it is a reboot, but now we're going to have two games on the same console called Modern Warfare Remastered and Modern Warfare. I feel like in some cases that is actually legitimately going to be confusing for people. Greg Miller of Kind of Funny, he's a guy that I've been listening to for ages, back from when he was on Podcast Beyond with Colin Moriarty, and so I've been following him ever since they left IGN. And it Kind of Funny. Greg put out a series of tweets because when the Schreier thing happened. Aha! Double cleaver. When the Schreier thing when the YouTuber tweeted out that the name was going to be Modern Warfare, and Schreier corroborated that, confirmed it was just going to be Modern Warfare. People were kind of getting a little upset, and Greg put out a series of tweets of him getting upset over the people getting upset, saying, it's like, a couple days ago I remember seeing all this hype of the potential of a new Modern Warfare game, and now all you people are very down on it just because of the naming convention. It's like names like this has worked before, as in the Doom remake from 2016, God of War being a very, very good example of that. So what's wrong with the title Modern Warfare? Yeah, it's like I guarantee you that a mom or a grandma walking into a GameStop will be able to correctly pick out the right game to give as a Christmas present or a holiday present, birthday present, whatever. And it's not really that big a deal. Just be happy of what you're getting, and make sure the developers know you're happy, because overall the everyone is. What is this guy doing? Overall, everyone is very happy about this. It's just that there's some criticism with the naming convention. I agree and disagree with that statement.
Yeah.
I feel like it can work. Like God of War, that's a fantastic example of it working. But God of War PS4 is the only God of War game on PlayStation 4. Now, there's God of War 3 Remastered, but it's called God of War 3 Remastered. It's very clearly a different game from God of War PS4. The covers are very well. The cover's not even a good thing to talk about, but it's overall, just the name alone gives you a very. And I'm not even sure it's available physically. I think that may just be a digital only release. I'm not even quite sure. So. Because it was available with PlayStation Plus, I've technically got that game. I just haven't downloaded it. I may do that this summer. I don't know. I'll contemplate that. But so that's different from Call of Duty Modern Warfare, of this literally being the second game, possibly technically the third game on this console with that title, because. Because if you're a 67-year-old grandmother and you're going to buy this game for your 14-year-old, which, granted, aside from I get why Call of Duty games are rated M, but at the same time, I don't get my games are rated M because if you remove if you remove the blood and the language, it's like what really makes it that much different from say Star Wars Battlefront 2 in terms of rating? Is it just because it's real life? So is that really the difference? If they added blood to Star Wars Battlefront 2, would that make it an M-rated game even though there's aliens and stuff? Is that why Halo has blood? Is that why Halo is rated M just because it has blood? I don't know. That's questions I've always had about video games. What constitutes ratings in some cases? What even is an E10 plus rating? What the shab does that even mean? It's like how's that different from from rated E? I mean, I get what it means, but what does it mean? It's like the E10 plus means it's rated for everyone ages 10 and up. But how different is that from a game rated just E? So I've always had these kind of questions, and so this kind of goes into it. But so you're a 67-year-old grandmother, and you're going into a store to pick up the reboot for your 14-year-old grandson, whose birthday is the following week in October. Let's say, just as a hypothetical. So you go in, and all you know is that he wants Call of Duty Modern Warfare for his birthday. And you ask, and you don't really know much about video games, so you don't even bother looking. You just look, you just ask the clerk standing there behind the cash register. So they're gonna have 3 options of games to give you, and they're gonna and now these employees are gonna be hopefully these employees are gonna be knowledgeable.
Yeah.
So they might have an idea. But they can't help you if you don't know exactly what you want. So they're going to say, okay, so what do you want? Do you want Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, including the Modern Warfare Remastered? Do you just want Modern Warfare Remastered? Or do you want the new game, Modern Warfare? Which of the 3 is this? Grandmother is not going to have any idea.
Yeah.
Unless of course, grandson has specifically said the new one. In which case, then it's kind of on the clerk to say, I want the new Modern Warfare. Okay, then hopefully the clerk will know what that means. If not, then that's a problem with the establishment. But there's still, because of that, there's an extra level of confusion than if you say, I want to pick up Doom. Because it's like when Doom 2016 was released, it's slightly... I don't think it's really that big of a problem to talk about because we can call it Doom 2016.
Yeah.
Or Doom reboot or something. It's not really a big problem to talk about, and it's not really a big problem. It's more of a problem to talk about, but even then, it's not that big of a problem, and it's much easier to go into the store to pick it up because before Doom 2016, when was the last time a Doom game was released? It's been a long while. Yeah.
Well, the last release was Doom 3 BFG edition on the PS3 and Xbox 360.
So the previous console generation, which is an untold number of years before the reboot came out. So you're going in and it's like, I want Doom to change things up a little bit. Let's say I want Doom for Xbox 360. There's no confusion there. There's no confusion there whatsoever. The clerk absolutely knows. You know what you're. There's no confusion. God of War. Say I want God of War for PS4. Okay, so you got God of War. You don't want God of Warfare. God of Warfare. You don't want God of War for remastered. You want God of War, the new ones. Like yes, it's like okay, that's simple enough. But now there's 3 games called Modern Warfare on the same console, and there's not even a number to distinguish them. There's Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and even then you could technically get the case, but you wouldn't actually be able to get Modern Warfare Remastered because you'd need the download code that came with the copy that was still available in the shrink wrap, which if you're getting it used, you're not going to be able to get. It's just going to be the case. So that's a problem. But again, that's something the clerks probably know. So, but if you do buy it new, then you would get both. If there are still, I'm sure there's probably still new copies of Infinite Warfare floating around there with the download code for Modern Warfare Remastered. There's got to be. Then there, winter. Why is Winter Crash still in this in the rotation? It's June 1st. I feel like Christmas has passed. But anyway, then there's the standalone Modern Warfare. The fact that they released like a year later they released Modern Warfare Remastered as a standalone infuriates me because it's like, well, if I knew they were going to do this, I really would have just waited. But oh well. And then there's Call of Duty Modern Warfare the reboot. So it's like there is just a little bit more confusion with Modern Warfare than there is with, say, God of War or Doom.
Yeah.
So
I was actually thinking about like just to add on that, even if the original God of War were to be re-released on the PS4, and hypothetically it's just gonna say God of War, not God of War Remastered or anything. Even then, now I don't have the box arts of either the original or the newer one in my head, but I think it's pretty safe to say that just by looking at the box art, it's gonna be easy to figure out which one is which.
Yeah,
because,
two very different games.
Yeah, because
like, well, which God of War do you want? Do you want this remaster, or do you want the one that comes with the boy? I want the one that comes with the boy. Okay, here's the boy.
Well, I was thinking about more that, well, one is gonna have a cover that resembles the Greek mythology, and one is gonna have a more Norse tone to it. Whereas with Modern Warfare, it's just gonna be a soldier.
Yeah, you're right. It is just gonna be a soldier. You're absolutely right. Oh yeah, because that is another thing. You can say, oh, I want the Norse God of War. I don't care about Greek culture, but I like the Norse mythology. So I want the Norse God of War. Okay, here you go. But it's like I want Modern Warfare. There's a soldier on it. Well, that literally describes every Call of Duty cover ever in existence. So it's like okay. That's like, I mean, it's like saying, what do you want for your birthday? Oh, I want a Transformers toy. Oh, gee, that's very specific. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
So, and that's the interesting thing. I mean, this is sort of branching out, but that's just kind of the interesting thing about products in general.
Yeah.
Is that there are so many specific things, because like, if you say, I want a Lego Star Wars set, and I'm not picky, and I just want a Lego Star Wars set that comes I want a Lego Star Wars set that comes with R2-D2. There's a couple different options for that. If you want a but if you want a Transformer, more than likely there's going to be some sort of preference. So it's like, well, okay, do you want something from the Studio Series line, which is based off the movies? Do you want something from War for Cybertron Siege, which is kind of its own original thing? It's kind of these Cybertronian versions of the classic G1 characters. And then it's like, okay, you want something from Siege. All right, well, which character do you want? Because there's several different options here. And different price brackets. Do you want Ironhide, who's a deluxe? Do you want Shockwave, who's a leader, even though he's a Voyager, just put in a leader box? Do you want Ultra Magnus? Do you want an Optimus Prime? Do you want a Chromia? Do you want a Hound? There's more options there. So that probably requires specifics. So so I don't know. Maybe this is just me, but whenever it's come to gift giving and stuff around the holidays, whoa, what are you doing in there? I'll get you eventually. I've got 100 rounds in this thing. Deagle! He still got me, dang it. Almost 100 rounds in a Deagle, and I didn't kill him. I hate the P90 so much. Anyway, it's like, I've always been very specific with my lists, just so there's no way they could get the wrong thing unless it's just out of stock, and they panicked and went to a backup of something. So I don't know. I feel like maybe everyone should do that, but I don't know, maybe.
Why didn't?
Yeah, you got him. I don't know. Maybe I feel like I'm smarter than the average bear, so to speak, in certain cases. When I was a kid, but.
Yeah, I feel that can be quite different. In my case, I have either been very specific, or in the cases I haven't been specific, my parents have always like gone back to me uh, like say I for for instance, say I want a movie for a birthday present or a Christmas present or whatever, and if I just say the movie, they will then go back and ask, well, are you talking about DVDs or Blu-ray or what the
Well,
heck are
yeah,
you
and that's a
talking
whole
about?
other can of worms. That's a whole
Yeah,
other can of worms right there. Because
yeah,
movies, if you say I want Iron Man, you're probably talking about Iron Man and not Iron Man 2 or Iron Man 3.
yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's there. And it's like, but if you're like, oh, I want Star Trek. Okay, well that's a little harder. It's like, okay, do you want the 2009 J.J. Abrams reboot, or do you want the original Star Trek the motion picture from 1980? I think it was 1980. Anyway, yeah, it's like the movies are a whole other can of worms from video games. It's like,
Yeah, but of course, there's now technology, so I think I don't know how many actually use this or do it this way, but my family has just resorted to we have this group on Facebook, and then when it's getting time for birthdays and such, we like put up things that we want, and some of us actually just put up pictures of what we are wishing for.
oh wow.
So that's
See the whole online shopping area. This isn't even something that it's sort of kind of dismantling my argument about the name confusion with Modern Warfare, because I haven't considered that. I'm still very old fashioned. I haven't even thought of, it's like, oh, just put it in an Amazon wish list. Yeah, that's not something I've thought of. Because I'm still very much okay. Write down the things I want. Be very specific. Is because that's kind of still the era I grew up before there was just, oh, go to Walmart.com and make a wish list and I'll take care. It's so easy nowadays.
yeah. Granted, you you may say that you are a bit old-fashioned in that sense. I do still think a lot of people still do that, and especially a bit older people as well. So I don't think it's.
That's true.
I mean, online shopping and such are of course a factor, but I don't know how big of a factor it is, honestly. I mean, it certainly helps for those that do use it, but yeah. Whoa.
Oh, okay. This will be quite the final kill cam. Let's see this. I think it was me. Yeah, it was me. Who needs to aim when you've got 100 rounds in your magazine? So yeah, that was an interesting discussion about the name behind of the new game. What's next on your docket of things to discuss today?
Actually,
If that was on there at all.
Actually, still about the name slash reboot.
Okay.
Because I was gonna say, after reading some articles, because I mean I didn't really think much of the reboot, or the fact that it was getting rebooted instead of getting a direct sequel, but after reading some articles where the developers are interviewed, and thinking about it myself, I kind of realized that actually rebooting Modern Warfare is probably the best thing to do compared to just straight up making a sequel to Modern Warfare 3, for a couple of reasons. One, speaking about naming conventions and confusions and such, um, let's say they would put Modern Warfare 4 on the title. That well, I suppose they wouldn't make things more confusing. But I do think that would have impacted the customer base in a different way, in the sense that, oh, it's Modern Warfare 4, but I haven't played Modern Warfare 1, 2, or 3. What do I do then? Granted, most game sequels try. Even when there are direct sequels, they do try to. Well, I suppose it's not just games, but movies as well. Maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe might be the exception here, but generally speaking, it's not required to have played or watched or read the previous parts of a series. However, I know for sure that there are people who are gonna look at the Modern Warfare 4 title and then say, oh gee, I haven't played any of the previous ones, so I guess I'm not playing this one then. Because I'm sort of one of those persons.
Oh, what? I just got sniped from across the map.
Oof. Big. Oh. I got sniped as well, but not across the entire map. So there's that factor. There's also the factor going back to Black Ops 4, because the interesting thing about that one is that like the Black Ops games has always been super successful. Same goes with Black Ops 4. However, it has apparently not sold as well as Black Ops 3 did.
Yeah, this I find very interesting.
Which led to one of those bizarre headlines where Black Ops 4 was making all the money from its release, but investors were panicking because it didn't do as well as the last Black Ops game. So I suppose not having a number 4 in the Modern Warfare might also be a good reason, at least for Activision, in that, well, there won't be investors looking at the sales for Modern Warfare 4, or excuse me, for Modern Warfare 2019, and going, oh, this is lower than the sales of the last Modern Warfare, but now it's kind of different in that it's not a sequel. And also going back to the whole, oh, it's what about those people that didn't play the earlier ones? Well, now we suddenly have a sequel that, because the Modern Warfare 3 came out in 2011, and sort of expecting players to pick up, or rather have Modern Warfare 4 as a direct sequel would be weird, so to speak, in a sense.
Yeah, it's a long time in between video game sequels for that.
Granted, it's not. I mean, it's not doom and gloom there already, because this happened recently with the Ace Combat series, where we had 7 released this year, but 6 was released in 2007 or something like that. However, that series is a bit different in that, even though there are a number after the title, generally speaking, the sequels don't really have that much to do with each other. It's just standalone
Here's another
stories.
game, let's put a number on it.
Yeah. It's more standalone stories, so they don't really have much to do with each other. So that
It's the Final Fantasy of the flight sim world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in a sense, because they do still take place in the same continuity. It's just that they don't.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, they just don't have an impact most of the time. Although, weirdly enough, the new one actually is the first one that actually takes prior continuity into consideration. But oh well. And also, going to the entire reasoning behind rebooting the Modern Warfare series in the first place is that they want to portray a modern setting with what they say is essentially things that are straight out of the headlines for newspapers and such, which I mean a game called Modern Warfare. I mean that kind of goes without saying that it's about the modern setting and all that. But the thing with making a sequel to Modern Warfare 3 is that suddenly you aren't.
Yeah.
You're not really making a game set in the real world anymore, because suddenly it's in a post-World War III setting. And we haven't even gotten to World War III in the real world. So
thankfully. Because I mean it's cool to think about, it's cool to theorize about. Yeah, it's like oh my gosh, Modern Warfare 2 ends with the beginning of Modern Warfare ends with the beginning of World War III starting. It's like, oh, this is so cool, and it's like, no, if World War III were to happen, it would be catastrophic. We thought World War I and World War II were bad. No, in World War III, it would be the war to end all wars.
Yes.
for once and for all, because most everyone would probably end up dead. I mean, if it were to be, if it were to follow the course of a world war and Europe would be the main battleground like in before, I don't think those countries would be livable afterward. They would either get nuked, they would just be so destroyed it'd be impossible to rebuild. Yeah, it's I mean the only reason Modern Warfare 3 kept their version of World War 3. Honestly, that was kind of a tame version of World War III.
Yeah.
Because it was a relatively short war. It was over and done in the course of a couple months. Where World War I and World War II were years. So.
Yeah, and then then it's really just a fictional setting, even if it's set in a relatively.
It's not real anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, Modern Warfare as a series has even even when it went more closer to a Michael Bay action movie, it still had that sense of realism and like trying to portray how things could happen.
Right, because when people die in the Modern Warfare games, they do stay dead. Ghost is dead, Roach is dead, Gaz is dead, Soap is dead, actually Nikolai's alive, excuse me, but Yuri's dead, Makarov's dead, Shepard's dead. There's no even as outlandish as it does get, there's no you can't pull a Michael Bay. Oh, Optimus is alive again thanks to plot convenience. Yeah, like you can in Transformers. Yeah, it's like well, that person's dead now. Rip them.
Yeah.
Unless you count the unless you count the random NPCs that are running around to fill up the background, because it's like you'll see like 3 or 4 Private Smiths get shot in the face during your playthrough of that entire trilogy. It's like, hey, Private Smith, good to see you again. I guess you got better from the last time you got blown up. Oh, and your head's gone. Okay. I guess I'll see you in Modern Warfare 3. Hey, Modern Warfare 3. Good to see you, Private Smith. How you doing? Oh, your leg is completely gone. You're bleed. Oh yeah, you're dead. You just bled out. That's unfortunate. Yeah. See ya see you later. So, ignoring that, which is just a funny video game thing. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, shipment, yes.
Yeah. Granted, they could still potentially, even in a post World War III setting, they could have potentially still make it be about current events, because they're sure to be bound to have things happening even in a post World War III setting. But then the problem with that is that while it is possible, it's gonna be hard to strike a balance between portraying current events while also staying
keeping
true
to the previous continuity.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a problem that I have with the newer Tom Clancy books, even though the last one I read was from 2011 or 12 or something like that. I'm a little bit behind. And I guess this is my LMG map, where they've kind of
2 words: frag out.
Yes. So I say newer Clancy novels, but keep in mind I don't actually mean the ones that are still being released, even though he is not with us anymore.
How would he have felt about Outbreak and Siege?
Oh gosh. So I'm just referring to what is kind of generally double kill. Generally or commonly called as kind of the new Clancy book era, starting with in the 2010. Because there was one novel. Granted, it was more of a subplot, but it was about creating a lasting peace in the Middle East, which ended up working.
Impossible.
Yeah. It worked in that novel that was released in must have been the 90s or something. I don't know, or early 2000. No, it must have been the 90s because it was before Rainbow Six, and that was in the 90s. So in that universe, it would make sense to not to be at least less conflicts in the Middle East. However, since Clancy's books are about the current events, that essentially meant that the whole thing about peace in the Middle East fell through completely. Granted, that is realistically speaking that could still happen, but it kind of feels like, oh, this thing that ended up being resolved has now been completely tossed aside because he wants to write about current events, even though at that point the universe where the book takes place, and that actually brings up an example that is a lot weirder, because in his books, I'm pretty sure 9/11 has happened, which
oh really?
I mean that makes sense.
How did 9/11 happen if there's peace in the Middle East?
However, 9/11 doesn't make as much sense in that universe, considering in that universe before 9/11 there was a similar event that and this is one of those weird things. It was a book that came out before 9/11, And spoilers for this book. I'm not gonna name the title of
That
it.
came out before 9/11.
Yeah. The book ends with a with a civilian plane crashing or flying straight into I don't remember which building. It must have been some governmental building, because the president and pretty much the entire cabinet was there, effectively wiping out most of the U.S.
Was
government.
this the one where Jack Ryan becomes president?
Yes,
What was the name of designated? No, wait, that was a TV show. Never mind. I was about to call it Designated Survivor. That was a TV show.
The novel would be, if I remember correctly, it must have been Depth of Honor that had that ending where he becomes president. But then that's the thing where, wait, so a similar event happened 2 times? Because
oh my gosh, I got so many new patches.
Oof. Because I mean, since 9/11 there hasn't been a similar event like that, so it kind of wait a second, what did the administration do after the first one? And then it just, and then there's also like some weird continuities issues where time-wise he has managed to cram in George W. Bush, even though, considering the timelines, I don't know how that would work out, since there's been a different person sitting as president in that book universe. So it's just so easy to completely mangle up and just confuse the heck out of me, at least. We're like, wait, so once again, very long-winded way of saying making a reboot was probably the wisest choice. So you can portray current events while not having to worry about having it fit into a previously established continuity.
So it's a reboot, but this is the question I have: is that because it's a reboot and it's trying to do things that can be ripped straight from the headlines and stuff like that, as I've been saying, because of that and of issues you just brought forward, of that, you know, it's like, is that, you know, it's what? Come on, there you go. Thank you for dying. If this were to be a sequel to Modern Warfare 3, then it's harder to do that, because you'd have to keep the continuity, and it's already a fictional world, and so much has changed that there are things that can't exactly happen. Do you think they're building this up to be more of a I just got airstriked. But it was a friendly, so I'm okay, but it startled me.
Oh.
Do you think they're building this more to be a standalone game, and they will not make a sequel for it? So there's not going to be a Modern Warfare 2-2.
That really depends on the plot of this game. It's hard to tell, because I mean, they could. I mean, I realistically speaking, I could see them still being able to make straight out of the headline stories, but probably with.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that Modern Warfare 2 and 3 got so over the top in some cases that's why, and that's so. I suppose maybe if they do keep it a little more grounded this time around, then we could see a Modern Warfare 2-2 and a Modern Warfare 3-3. Not confusing at all, but so I suppose it's possible. But I think also reception to the game is going to be a big factor, because as I think Ryan McCaffrey put this in his preview for the game when it was unveiled. Is that Modern Warfare wants
Oh,
to
that
be
works. Whoa.
controversial. Or no. It wants to make you feel it wants to make you feel uncomfortable. Or no,
Yeah.
Modern Warfare makes you feel uncomfortable, but it's okay because it wants you to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So so if they do that too well, then maybe there's going to be boycotts and people aren't going to buy it and other things like that because no Russian
Yeah.
because they're wanting to do because they said they're inspired by No Russian in Modern Warfare 2, and that's one of the big things driving the inspiration behind this game is that they want these more controversial moments. If every other, I don't think it's going to be every other. I don't think it's going to be every other level from just what we've been seeing and hearing. It's not going to be every other level, and it's going to be a bunch of little moments scattered throughout. But if there's enough of those that are visceral enough, that are really not even thought provoking, but I think visceral is a good way to put it. If the visceral games, if there's enough of these moments that are visceral enough and controversial enough in just the little moments, then I feel like that could be a thing that stops this game from getting a sequel. Is that it's like, nope, there was too much bad press. It was No Russian times 1,000 from all these news outlets. We cannot risk a PR nightmare like this again. So no Modern Warfare 2. I feel like that could be an issue. I hope it's not. But because there's like, if we get a new Modern Warfare trilogy, heck yeah, I'm all for that if they're good. So I guess we'll find out. But this is one of those exciting times where we've gotten this information. We don't have too much of it, but we've got just enough to really speculate about. So because there's a fine line between not having any information, having rumored information, and having just enough information. We're in we have just enough information period currently. So, which I like because we've got just enough to speculate and we can be proven completely wrong on in the future. But we've still got enough information to speculate on and really think about and theorize, which is fun. So I obviously it's a wait and see game, but yeah, it's all this wait and see is really making me I'm getting more and more excited for this.
Yeah, I was actually going to segue into the whole the gritty reboot of the the grittier game, because that's also one of those interesting things where I wouldn't say I wouldn't say the original COD games, i.e. the original World War II ones, were light-hearted, because I mean, it's not really light-hearted when you're storming the beaches of Normandy and the soldiers getting mowed down left and right, or in the case of the original Call of Duty, watching Soviet soldiers running back towards your line, and then them getting shot in the head by commissars who screams, "Not one step backwards," and then you rush towards the Germans in Red Square without a weapon.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I'd call lighthearted either.
Yeah, but however, there is this. I'm really not sure how to put it. I guess maybe a better term would be about the morality. I don't know if even that one is correct. It makes sense when I come to COD 4, but however, because even though the original CODs weren't exactly lighthearted, I mean there wasn't much gore that I remember until World at War, where they turned the gore up to 11 instead.
Yeah, Treyarch really likes their gore.
Yeah. However, and this doesn't go with just COD, but also I feel the World War II shooters released during that era, where it's a pretty clear cut between good and evil, where, I mean, you play as the good guys.
Well, I mean, that was kind of World War II in general as well.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why we've had so many World War II games. It just has that already outlined. I mean, you have the good guys and you have the bad guys because of what the Nazis did, but then the games didn't necessarily portray all the horrific war crimes and such, but it still was presented as, with the historical context, you knew what this was all about, but even though it wasn't portrayed in the games per se, which is actually one of the things I do appreciate about the campaign in World War II, because as far as I can tell, I don't think there's been that many World War II games that have showcased the concentration camps. Now I say that, and I know that there is a mission in the original COD where you're storming what seems to be a concentration camp to rescue a British SES operative that is not Captain Price. But it's not really presented as being, oh, this is one of those places where loads and loads of people were just killed en masse. But as far as I can tell anyway, World War II, the recent World War II COD game did have a, albeit very short section, but it did have a bit that where you were going through the remains of a concentration camp that the Nazis had kind of tried to clear out as they were falling back. So that is something I do appreciate with that campaign, in that they actually showcased a little bit of that. But generally speaking, for the early 2000s era, it was really clear cut, good versus evil, and all that. However, then comes COD 4, which was more grittier in a sense, and also it had more of a moral ambiguity, because even though, I mean, you obviously play as the good guys and you fight bad guys, and the bad guys, especially Sakaev, do come across as a Bond villain. But it also had those moments, like the first mission when you're about to board the cruiser and they say crew expendable, and you shoot sleeping crewmen in their sleep.
Well, I mean, from that always, because I hadn't really given that moment too much thought up until my last playthrough a week or so ago. I hadn't really given that too much thought, but then I really did think about it. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. I mean, there are armed crew members and they do shoot at you, but then there's others that you do just shoot in their beds as they're sleeping. But at the same time, this is also a cargo ship that's carrying a nuclear device that was meant for Al-Assad. So it's like, it's like, I mean, based on all that information, I think they make it okay to if you'd found nothing, then it's like, okay, we've got a problem here. But you found a nuclear device meant for Al-Assad, so I feel like through that they make it they were working for the ultranationalists. They were who were working with al-Assad. They were the bad guys. They chose their side. They chose they chose they chose the side opposite of yours. So they weren't necessarily the best people probably. The moment in the campaign I think has the most moral ambiguity later is a little bit later when you get to Russia for the first time and you have to rescue Nikolai. And you make your way through the village and everything, and then the Price says we're going to meet up with Kamarov, and Gaz says, then the good Russians or the bad Russians, and then Price just says, well, I won't shoot at you if that's what you're asking. And it's like, all right, copy that, and because a big plot point in that game is that Russia is currently in the middle of a civil war. You've got the ultranationalists versus the government loyalists, which Kamarov was part of the government loyalists, and the ultranationalists were where Zakayev and Makarov is his right hand and his son, and then they were working with al-Assad to kind of try to take the Middle East as their own, and rebirth the Soviet Union. And then, of course, and that adds an interesting wrinkle to the beginning of Modern Warfare 2, I think, is that it's very clear-cut. The ultranationalists are the bad guys, it seems like, but then who won that war, as is revealed at the beginning of Modern Warfare 2, but the ultranationalists. They're the ones that won. That statue's unveiled in the opening cutscene, and it says, Imran Zakayev, hero of the new Russia.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And then it adds the whole trilogy is like this, really, because then we move on to Modern Warfare 3. The ultranationalist president and his men, they seem like good guys. They seem like some okay guys. There's not really... the Russian president realizes that not everything is okay here, that they were kind of sort of tricked into invading the U.S., and he wants peace talks with the U.S. as soon as possible. And then there are some members of his cabinet that are still they've got the wool over their eyes, and then the plane gets attacked and Makarov holds them hostage, and then Makarov from that point forward is the leader of Russia. But the thing is that they were both ultranationalists, so even then it adds even more moral ambiguity to Call of Duty 4 looking back, because it's like you're shooting up all these ultranationalists, and it's like, oh well, the president from Modern Warfare 3 was one of these ultranationalists, so obviously they're not all bad. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I was just gonna point out some other things from COD 4, just to highlight the more moral ambiguity of that game, like the infamous AC-130 segment where you're completely distanced from everything that's happening way below you, and and that one is I'm not sure I would say, oh, that was uncomfortable for me to play, but at the same time it kind of is, because when well, not really the first time I was playing it, because I think a lot of these things kind of flew right over my my head. But you have those things where,
because it's fun. You're blowing things away easily, and there's not really any threat of losing that mission, unless of course you accidentally fire on your own guys.
Yeah, because you only see your enemies as like white dots and such. Or
you can tell they're people and they're running, but
yeah. And the way the crew members talk, where like it's like
lot of little pieces, good hit.
Yeah, like those people on the ground that you're blowing up are completely dehumanized for you, because it's like, oh, it just blips on the on the infrared screen, and I feel that segment has kind of become more somewhat more uncomfortable especially when videos of real life AC-130 gun runs were starting to pop up, and it was like, oh, and I
Well, I think we're going to get a new version of that mission in the game, because at one point they do mention Spectre 6-4 in the trailer, and that was the call sign of the gunship in that game. So it's shown at the moment where we see what are presumably Navy SEALs jumping out of a helicopter, but it's possible that you know. Yeah, so I mean, so this time, instead of the AC-130 helping out the SAS, the AC-130 may be helping out Navy SEALs and Marines or something in the Middle East. So it may be that, you know, you play as these Marines on the ground, and then you transition to a mission afterward, playing as the AC-130. But the Spectre 6-4 call sign from Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 3 is used in that trailer. So.
I didn't notice that. So yeah, that was really just to highlight that how COD 4 was the grittier, or the at that point the gritty game in the series, and now it's getting a grittier reboot.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting to see, because I'm all for a game, because I'm on the mindset that a game doesn't necessarily have to be entertaining to be good, and with that I mean, it doesn't have necessarily have to be, I'm like actually having fun while playing.
The Last of Us is a good example of this.
Yeah,
I think there
exactly.
there are certainly moments where that game is a lot of fun to play, because by the end of that game, we're, trying to move around the clickers and everything. I was having a lot of fun with the strategy of it. Like, okay, if I throw this brick here and make sure this Molotov cocktail ends up over here, then I can sneak over here and get the clickers to move over here and make sure the bloater doesn't approach me, stuff like that. I was having a lot of fun with that, even though I was still uncomfortable at the same time. It's like, oh, these things are creepy. So, so I mean, there was always that. But I mean, The Last of Us does have its fun moments, but overall, that game does just reek of uncomfortableness. And I mean, it's like, oh gosh, you talk about a gritty game. That game is gritty.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I had a fun time playing that game, but looking back, it's like that's such a raw and emotional story as well. So and I think that's one of the reasons it is counted as one of the best video games ever created, is because of that. But then, of course, people also include games like Mario, like the original Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, as one of the best games of all time, just based on a pure level design and fun factor. So obviously, there's a lot that does go into what makes a game good, and that means different things for different people. And sometimes a good game doesn't necessarily mean the same thing comparing two different games.
Yeah.
But I just got blown away by an airstrike. But yeah, so and that's all. Those are all very interesting outlook things to think about. It's like I honestly speaking, I had not really thought twice about the AC-130 missions in either Call of Duty 4 or Modern Warfare 3. I'd never given them a second thought up until just now that you brought it up. So that's interesting.
Granted, the AC-130 segment in Modern Warfare 3 does it does not highlight those things that it did in COD 4. It was one of those weird things where the original mission in COD 4 like had this rather simple thing you were doing that you couldn't really fail, and then like had a message with it. But then Modern Warfare 3, as well as pretty much all the other Modern Warfare-esque games that had similar moments, i.e. Battlefield 3, not an AC-130 granted, but still one of those segments where you're way above in the air and shooting down at targets way below you, and you can't really fail. Like excuse me. It was like the original take on that was really. Yeah, it had this message to say, but then all the copycats, as well as Modern Warfare 3, seem to have kind of missed the point of what made that mission great in the first place, and then it was just turned into a shooting gallery with explosions and stuff. With the exception of, and this is a game I haven't played, but I was gonna mention it because that's also the thing with COD 4. Now I say all these things, so it's about its moral ambiguity and its message of modern warfare, but it's also a shooter where you're just shooting. It's one of those games that you on one hand you do have that, like, this world to be immersed in and have all these.
And on the other, it's got this multiplayer where we're running around gunning down 1,000 people a second and being gunned down just as easily while we're talking about moral ambiguity.
Yeah, precisely. You have those, like, the messages of the game, so to speak, that it wants to tell you. But at the same time, it's also a game that you can just turn off your brain and shoot terrorists, and it works both ways. Based from what has been said about the new Modern Warfare game, with them deliberately wanting to make you feel uncomfortable, it will be interesting to see if it's gonna work as a just turn off the brain and shoot terrorists as well, or if it's gonna be more well, just be more uncomfortable in general, a la Spec Ops: The Line, which is a game I haven't played but heard a lot of great things about.
Same.
Where I don't think, I don't know, I suppose that's, you could theoretically as well also just turn off your brain and shoot bad guys. Because I actually played the demo when it came out, and I was like, what's this game? And my conclusion after playing the demo was that, this just seems to be a third-person copycat of Modern Warfare. I guess I'm skipping this one. And then, like, a couple of months later, suddenly articles and how it was kind of subverting a oversaturated subgenre.
Yeah, it's funny. I podcast I listen to. I can't remember which one it is actually. Which I've listened to so many gaming podcasts. I can't remember which one it was mentioned on, or when. But recently, and by recent I mean like the last 2-3 years. So not exactly recently, but there was a fact stated from someone that works at the publisher that Spec Ops: The Line, even though it hasn't sold these great big numbers, it is to this day and by to this day I mean from when I heard this information 2 or 3 years ago at this point, but to this day it remains a consistent seller. It is consistently selling month over month. Not large numbers, but it is selling because people keep hearing about it from these personalities that do podcasts and stuff, saying, yeah, this game is actually really special. It has a message. It tells its story, and it's a very, very interesting game that not a lot of people paid attention to when it came out, and that's too bad. And so then it still consistently sells, and it still consistently sells on PS3 and Xbox 360. It's never had. It's never had a modern console release. So
yeah. It's actually that I actually didn't know. I mean I knew it didn't. It wasn't a big hit commercially. But interesting to see that it still seemed to have like sold well over the months and years, which is really how I think the games industry should work. But that
Yeah.
is kind of this. Oh, it didn't sell this amount of copies in the first week. Oh, yeah, it underperformed as Square Enix and Capcom usually say about a lot of their games, even when, for instance, the Tomb Raider reboot from 2013 sold over 6 million copies or something like that, but it's still underperformed.
Hey, Square Enix, Capcom, if all of your games are underperforming, then you have way too high expectations.
Yeah. Granted, I will say Capcom seems to have gotten better with that, because they did say Resident Evil 7 underperformed. However, and I don't know how many copies it sold, but I think the new Resident Evil 2 remake sold something along the same numbers. That one they actually didn't say underperformed. They actually said that they were happy with the results, so that's actually good.
Well, they may not have, because I feel like from what people have been talking about on gaming podcasts is that one of the reasons Resident Evil 2 remake did so well is because Resident Evil 7 came out and people loved it. So so there was a little extra added press there that gave it a little extra boost beyond. It's like, oh, it's this old critically acclaimed game that's come back that people sometimes ignore, when it first comes out and then pick it up later at a discount. But instead it's like, oh, hey, it is a remake of an older game, but I liked the one that just came out, so I'll go ahead and get it. So then maybe because of that they had lower expectations of it because it was a remake. But then, oh my gosh, I got another airstrike.
Nice.
That's 3 now.
Wow, that's a lot of airstrikes. Speaking of Ace Combat,
I'm single-handedly winning this match for us.
Yeah, speaking of Ace Combat, I maybe this is how it feels to be on the ground in in those games with all these airstrikes coming. Anyway, I was about to say that bit of a side note, but Spec Ops: The Line has has an interesting developer story. One being that it didn't have going back to the whole, oh, I tried the demo and it just seemed to be a generic Modern Warfare-esque game. It also had a multiplayer that wasn't planned to be in there, but was made by another developer just to have a multiplayer, because that was expected from
that
a
was
Modern
a big thing at the time.
Yeah, because it was expected from...
They shoehorn in multiplayer modes, single-player games. That's why Uncharted 2 and 3 and 4 have multiplayer modes, because Uncharted 2 had it, so they had to put it in 3, so they had to put it in 4.
Yeah, because it was just expected in a Modern Warfare-esque game, but also, as you said, just in games in general at that time. However, the interesting thing about the development for that game was that now the Spec Ops franchise isn't exactly new, but there hadn't been a game released in plenty of years. I don't even know if there was any games released on the PS2. That's how old that series was. But with the popularity of Modern Warfare shooters, they wanted to make a new one. And there's the Song of the Lord, as in Lord Tachanka.
And there's my grenade.
The Lord would be proud. Anyway, the publisher for Spec Ops: The Line said to literally the only thing that they said to developer was, make it a modern shooter. And obviously they made one, but they were also like thinking about maybe there's a way we could do this that's not generic, and wanted to have a story that said something about the modern war, that actually all these games where you're blowing up stuff and having all that fun, it's not really that fun in real life. But they were constantly afraid that eventually the publisher would just step in and say, no, you have gone too far, you need to pull back on all these things. But they actually just like, no, just keep going.
I think I've heard a more truncated and less detailed kind of general elevator pitch type story version of this story, because the guy that wrote that game also helped co-write in quotes Battlefront 2 2017.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, because that guy and Mitch Dyer, who used to work at IGN, which is why I recognize that. I'm like, oh, he's writing a Star Wars game? This should be interesting. Yeah, it's like they, again, quote unquote, wrote Battlefront 2. It's obvious they wrote a whole bunch and had a great story there, and then EA told them what they could and couldn't do, and then they were left with just a shell of what they wanted to do, which I feel so sorry for them, because a bit of what I feel like they were wanting to really do with that game came through with the Han Solo level, which I feel like that level probably wasn't originally envisioned for Han, but like the little, because that level out of the entire game has probably the most Easter eggs out of the whole rest of the game, and I'm talking really nerdy Easter eggs too, because you're given the different things that you need to go hunt for to find your contact. And one of the things is the drink he's drinking, which is Marinzane Gold. Like, that's a drink that was referenced in like the Tales from Jabba's Palace novel from 1994 or something like that. So I'm like, so those are super nerdy references that only hardcore Star Wars fans would bother to throw in there, and not just regular writers. So I feel it's so unfortunate, because even then I thought the campaign was decent. It could have been a lot better, but it was at least decent. And it's like, well, what if the whole game had been stuff like that, where it was all these references and a really engaging story? It's like, oh, stupid EA, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Call of Duty.
Yeah, I was about to say. So going back to Modern Warfare. So that will be interesting to see exactly how, because even with all the uncomfortable moments, it's still gonna be a first-person shooter, and it will be interesting to see how they balance the kind of fun shooting with all these uncomfortable moments. Whether it's gonna be like COD 4 that works both ways, or if it's gonna be more like of what I've heard of Spec Ops: The Line, where it's just generally uncomfortable. I feel like, based on the interviews, it seemed to be closer to my perceived image of Spec Ops, I should say, since I still haven't played that. I feel like I should. However, as I said, I'm all for this. I'm all for having a modern shooter that makes you think, that not only portrays current events but also makes you think about the stuff that's happening, and make you feel something, i.e., being uncomfortable. But then there's the other side of me reading the interviews and this whole started when I was reading something on Activision's website, like their own website about Modern Warfare, where they explicitly mentioned that the campaign for Modern Warfare is gonna be gritty, uncomfortable, and edgy.
Oh,
suddenly,
Fences and All-American Reject startup, yo Paraka.
Suddenly, all my alarm bells were ringing in my head, because as soon as I hear
you
the
don't
word
want to describe
edgy,
something as edgy.
yeah, and that all, like when I was reading other articles, the word edgy was just in the back of my head when I was reading about how the developers want to make you feel uncomfortable, they want to portray controversial stuff, and I don't want to say I'm like, oh, they shouldn't do this, but a part of me is slightly worried, just based on that one word, that maybe it will just be for shock to create shock value rather than to actually say something and just being controversial for the sake of being controversial.
Well, see here, so the only place you read that was on Activision's page.
Yeah.
I feel like that the developers themselves would not use that word
Yeah.
I don't think they would use edgy to describe their game. I feel like Activision's marketing people would use that word to describe the game, and maybe that's not entirely accurate, but they're trying to spin the game to where it'll sell more copies. And unfortunately, they're just doing not a great job of it by using the word edgy.
Yeah.
So I mean, considering that's the only place you saw it, that's my feelings on it for now. But if developers start coming out and go, "Oh yeah, it's really edgy, bro," it's like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
oh no."
Yeah, and it's almost so sad that just that one word. I mean, I do feel, based on, as you said, it was just from that one article from Activision themselves. That word hasn't been, and like based on the interviews with the developers, it does seem that okay, there seems to be going to be a lot of controversial stuff in the game, but it has a purpose in the narrative and like has a specific message and all that, which I'm
See, that's
all
the thing
for.
With no Russian. That's the thing with no Russian. Everyone likes to talk about it and go, and oh, see, look how controversial it was. But it had a purpose in the story. It was not controversy for controversy's sake, which some people like to think it was. It actually had a purpose in the story that pushed the plot along, and actually the game makes a little less sense when you just skip the level entirely, which of course was not the original intention. They were just kind of forced to because bad press. You know, if you had actually played that level, you know, it's like it really. I mean, that mission propels the plot of both Modern Warfare 2 and 3 because of everything that happens. So it's a great big. The argument can be made that you didn't have to play that. It could have been a cutscene. It could have been a news report that you saw, and then you get filled in. But I feel like playing it does kind of help sell what's happening, and all of that. So I mean, it had its place in the game. It made sense that it was there. The mission that I think was controversial for controversy's sake that no one actually talks about is Davis Family Vacation from Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah. I will agree with that.
To where for those of you that don't know, because honestly these games are old at this point. I mean, this is the 10-year anniversary of Modern Warfare 2 for Pete's sake. The Davis Family Vacation was a level after the SAS level in Modern Warfare 3, which is the end of the first act of the game. So the SAS level, you're chasing these Russian terrorists around London. They've got all these mysterious packages and shipments that they're trying to keep out of your hands. You know, there's a whole shootout in the subway, chasing after them and stuff. And so then you manage to finally corner one of the trucks by Downing Street, which is where Parliament is. You know, the ruling body of Great Britain. You manage to actually stop this. You actually manage to stop this truck and get it cornered, and then your squad commander tells you to go and open up the truck. So now from here, the game splits off into two different places. If you chose to skip the I think the game calls it sensitive content. If you choose to skip the sensitive content in the game, then as you approach the truck will then just explode, and then it'll cut to a cutscene. If you choose not to skip the sensitive content, then you take the control of just this random guy this American on vacation in London at the time, and his wife is there and his daughter is there, and they are the Davis family. As judging by the title of the mission, as it's called, Davis Family Vacation. And so then, it says Davis Family Vacation. You're like Frank Davis, whatever his first name is. It's like, time left on camcorder 5 hours or something like that. So they're in London. Their kids looking around, going, "Oh, look at the birds," and all that. And the wife saying, "Don't go too far." And then it's like, "Oh, look there, you can see Big Ben in the distance and stuff." And then you see a truck pull up onto the side of the sidewalk. It stops. These guys, and of course, you as the player immediately recognize this is one of these trucks that you've been chasing down. These guys in jumpsuits get out and run away. And so then the wife and you assume the husband has a similar look on his face. Of course, it's a first-person shooter, so you don't actually see his look because you're controlling him. But the wife has a strange look on her face, like, "What was that?" And so you probably have a similar look. And then the daughter is approaching the truck out of curiosity, and then it explodes. And then it cuts to a cutscene, and it cuts to the same cutscene you would get whether or not you play that section. That was 100% for controversy's sake, and ironically, there was no controversy surrounding it. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, there's another sort of kind of no Russian type mission. All right, moving on." Because that's the thing. Because no Russian had its place. If you skip that if you skip that and you don't really follow the context clues and you don't listen too closely to the cutscene, you're not gonna realize what's going on, and you're gonna be a little bit confused about the plot. If you skip Davis Family Vacation, they're planning for that, and they actually have a replacement cutscene to play in the game instead of the actual mission. If you choose not to play it, then as you approach the truck as the SAS, it explodes, and you get the exact same. You still get the idea that these trucks are full of gas bombs, and now these gas attacks have been launched all over Europe. So no matter what, they definitely get the point across, and you didn't need to play, and you didn't need to see this innocent family get blown up. So no Russian actually has its place. As I was saying, if you skip it, then there's potential that you're going to be confused because it's very integral to the plot. Davis Family Vacation can be skipped entirely, and you lose nothing. Yeah, I mean, some people may not even know that mission is in the game because they just immediately, because they're just going through at the very beginning of the game, going through and skipping. Oh, and there's my dead body flopping down the stairs. They're just going through and hitting the yes and no on all the options. It's like, "Oh, do you want to see sensitive content?" No thanks. And then they skip Davis Family Vacation. They played their campaign once and they're none the wiser. Okay. So that's Davis Family Vacation is 100% there just to cause controversy, and it didn't cause controversy, which I just find hilarious. So Modern Warfare 3 did not need that mission, obviously, but so I don't understand why more people don't talk about that. How did not one of those shots land? Oh, that's an airstrike. So yeah, so that's an interesting thing about Modern Warfare 3. So. Oh, and you guys took care of him, and I'm cooking grenade. Awesome.
Oh no.
Oops. Because that area because I just got killed twice there, so I was going to toss a frag in there, but you'd already cleared out, so I'm just standing there cooking grenade, confused on what to do. So that's really the big question I have about the reboot is, it's like when it comes to these controversial moments, as we've been talking about moral ambiguity, some gray areas, controversial things. As if they're more like No Russian, where they're integral to the plot and they make sense and they really do raise questions about what's going on that help advance the plot, and they're less Davis Family Vacation, then I think we're okay. If they're more Davis Family Vacation, which are just there for the sake of being there because it's dark and edgy and stuff like that, then I think we'll have a problem. But I even though I should not have faith based on the last two games they came out with, I have faith in Infinity Ward. And also, there's a lot of talent that's actually been returning to Infinity Ward recently. Which is nice, because that's the thing. After Modern Warfare 2 came out, I'm actually looking back at the development history of that game, I'm surprised Modern Warfare 3 turned out as good as it did.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like that game because I think it's just more of the same. I appreciate the things it did. Again, with the exception of David's Family Vacation, it's like it did make improvements to the game. I mean, there is a lot of Modern Warfare 2 still in that game. I mean, there are some things that, because like the HUD, for instance, is exactly the same. It's exactly the same HUD. Some people complain that the main menu is pretty much exactly the same. I don't get that complaint. It's like, well, it's a sequel to a video game. Why does the main menu really need to be any different? It's just a sequel. It's just keeping the format that the series has. So that I didn't necessarily get.
I mean,
but another thing I didn't notice up until very recently is that the animations for like reloading your guns are exactly the same. I don't really have a problem with, because because the guns in that game actually do feel a lot different compared to their counterparts in Modern Warfare 2. For instance, the M4A1 feels a lot beefier and heavier to fire and control in Modern Warfare 3 than it does in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 1. So I don't care. I don't necessarily care that the animations for reloading the weapon are exactly the same. The weapon actually controls somewhat differently and feels different, so that's fine. There were actual changes made. It's if you've got the animations still for that weapon, why that person picked up my gun? Why bother ditching them and making new animations? Just reuse what you got. It's called recycling. It's good for the planet. So Modern Warfare 3 did a lot of good things that I appreciate it for, and it wasn't just more of the same. So, but even that being said, the Infinity Ward team that made that game was not the Infinity Ward team that made Modern Warfare 2, because there's the whole Vince Zampella and I forget the other guy's name, controversy and everything.
It's escaping me as well.
Yeah, it's because I brought it up. We'd be able to say it otherwise, but I brought it up, so now we're forgetting it. That's how it works. They were the heads of Infinity Ward. They and Activision had some disagreements. To this day, we don't necessarily really even know what those disagreements were. We sort of kind of maybe have an idea, but we don't really. So, I mean, I've heard it. I've heard so many different things that it could be. So, it's very. So they left. A lot of talent left with them. They left to form Respawn, which is doing very well for itself right now over at EA. But then, because if I'm not mistaken, Modern Warfare 3 was the first Call of Duty game to really have multiple studios publicly and very largely logoed, stated to have teams helping on that game. Nowadays, it's commonplace, but back in the day, that was either a secret, kind of a well-known secret, or it was just not a thing, and then it became a thing with this game. Because nowadays, Raven Software helping with the multiplayer is a thing that happens with almost every game. Raven was the lead with this is sort of an air quotes, but Raven was the lead developer on this game. Even though they were the ones in charge of remastering it after Infinity Ward did all the heavy lifting years prior to make it the first time around. So it's kind of a co-developed game in this iteration, but if I'm remembering correctly, the exact details, Infinity Ward handled the campaign for Modern Warfare 3, and then Sledgehammer worked on the multiplayer and Spec Ops for Modern Warfare 3, which they were fine. I mean, of course, you've got the higher ups at Infinity Ward probably telling them what to do, but I mean, actually doing the day-to-day development stuff, that was all Sledgehammer. So, Which is why it surprised me that years later Sledgehammer would then be able to develop their own titles. It's like, whoa, hold on, the support studio for Modern Warfare 3 is getting the chance to actually make their own titles in the series. That's interesting. So, I feel, and then after that, pretty much we've. I mean, maybe. No, I mean, I feel like Black Ops 2 just only had the Treyarch logo on the loading screen, and maybe somewhere buried in the credits it was stated that other teams helped. But then going forward, almost every game in the series has had multiple logos in the beginning after the Activision and main developer studio logos. After that, it's always been here's Raven and here's Raven on the map packs and High Moon Studios, because poor High Moon Studios, they made two great Transformers games, a good Transformers game that was actually pretty good despite its rush development, and then they got stuck on Call of Duty and Destiny duty.
Yeah,
just running support. So unfortunate.
I just pulled out my copies of Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2 because, well, they're right next to me. So for reference's sake, Modern Warfare 3, it does have the logos of both Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer, whereas Black Ops 2 only has Treyarch.
That's what I was thinking.
And just for reference's sake, I'm gonna, let's see, there's my copy of Black Ops 4. Now that one has a whole bunch of logos. There's Treyarch, there's Beanox, there's Raven.
Yeah. Hold on, let me pull up my copy of Ghosts. Here's Ghosts. Oh yeah, so here, oh wow, there's a name I haven't thought of in a while. So Infinity Ward, Raven, Neversoft.
Oh.
They closed, didn't they? Or no, or they became part of Raven, or something like that.
That sounds about right.
Replaying these games recently, I've actually sort of kind of getting the itch to go back and play Ghosts, even though I know I'm not gonna have a fun time, but I kind of want to go back and play the campaign just to see what it's like. But I know I'm not gonna have a fun time, and I'm gonna regret it, so I shouldn't. But it's that thing. It's like, well, I'm pretty full, but I could have this other piece of pizza. I'm not gonna feel good, but you know what? I really want to have that piece of pizza. You have that piece of pizza, and it's like, yeah, I should not have had that piece of pizza, but you ate it anyway. So so I'm kind of. I've had some pretty good experiences playing through the Modern Warfare trilogy again. I don't need to sour it. By playing Ghosts, but gosh dang it, is it actually kind of tempting?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about marathoning at least the Modern Warfare games.
Oh, what?
Sometime before the new one comes out. Maybe. Oh. RIP.
We got slaughtered.
Yeah. So that. Well, that is if I actually finish some other games before that, just so I can don't feel guilty about replaying old games.
'Cause Loka won't bother to play the game. Come on, finish the bloody game.
My list of games I own that I really should play is disgustingly high.
So speaking of which, what's your rank in what's your rank in Rainbow Six right now, buddy? Or are you even ranked to begin with?
I honestly don't remember.
I played enough the other day that I managed to get up to gold 3 or 2, something like that. So I finally got a rank this season. It's going to end here in like a week and a half or something, something like that probably. But yeah, it's Yeah, I mean, I sympathize. I sympathize. I manage to, whenever I get a new game like Spider-Man or something like that, I always manage to just find time to sit down and play through it and not get distracted. But I mean, yeah, but there's Rainbow Six Siege, which is always a fun time. Battlefront 2 has been churning out content pretty regularly for the last year, which has been very nice. So we're gonna get a community transmission on Wednesday. That's fun. For Battlefront 2.
Oh
We'll see what
yeah,
that's all about. So yeah, so I mean, I understand. I really understand why, especially sometimes you had a long day. Sometimes you want to just sit down, turn on online, and just shoot people in the face without really needing a reason to or wanting to go through the tactics. Sometimes you just want to turn on Modern Warfare Remastered and shoot a bunch of people with your LMG. You don't really want to think about it. You just want to pop in a podcast and do that. And you don't really want to bother with trying to save New York from all these different supervillains. So.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's also because there's Spider-Man, there's Metro Exodus, there's Kingdom Come Deliverance, which I started playing almost a year ago, and I'm like barely, like I guess I'm a couple of hours into that, but it's also a big and long open world game, so it's not really that much in the larger scheme of things. And it's like those 3 games unfinished at the same time, and just the piles of games that I was like, oh, pre-order for $50. I should be finished with at least Spider-Man and Metro Exodus, and boy was I wrong.
Nope. Then there's Jedi. Let's not forget that Jedi Fallen Order comes out in the fall.
Yeah.
So that'll probably be another game to add to your list.
Yeah. I'm just glad that summer is here, and soon I can take summer holiday, and I'm really gonna try to focus less on all the multiplayer stuff and really try to focus on the games I should be playing instead. At least I'll have plenty of time soon. So that's good.
Maybe we should do some sort of special or something where I join you for Spider-Man and we do the allow to watch gameplay or whatever that option is, and I sit there and we talk and I watch you play Spider-Man and help you through it or something.
That could be something.
Because this is something I've been meaning to broach for a while, and I probably don't want to do it on stream, but I'll do it anyway. Is that one of the PS Plus games for May that if you haven't redeemed those, speaking of yeah, if you haven't redeemed those PS Plus games for May by now, you probably need to do so. They're free games, even if for anyone out there that hasn't and they have PS Plus, you probably need to do that because they're free games, even if they don't seem interesting to you. They may in 3 months' time, so you never know. One of those free games was Overcooked, which I've heard a lot of good things about.
Yeah.
The only thing about that, and this is the thing that might end up being tricky, is that it doesn't have online multiplayer, which is kind of shocking considering the type of game it is. But I haven't poked around into it much, but I've poked around into it enough that there may be some sort of fix for that, to where you can do the share play feature, and then because the game is a couch co-op game, it will actually allow multiple controllers to be hooked up at once. So because of that, you may be able to share play with friends online. The only downside to that is that you're only getting progress in one person's game instead of both. But I feel like that would be a fun game to play for a stream. But that's the thing, because it's share play. I'm not sure how streamable that is. We've never tried share play. Was that very first TTV PSN fan community game night that ended up not going up because we didn't know about because we didn't know about the microphone settings at the time, and I let Smeedy play a little bit of Battlefront 2015. Of course, that wasn't being streamed. That was just
Yeah.
I had always said that if anything of note or funny happens, then I'll just make sure to save the clip and put it together in a highlights reel. And then about this time last year, actually, we started streaming.
Yeah.
So I'll look into that more, and then maybe for something on my channel or something on your channel, we can play Overcooked together, because I feel like that could be a lot of fun with a lot of potential funny moments. And maybe that's not something we want to stream. We just want to. Because again, it may not be possible, but maybe just something we play together, and then you can capture gameplay footage from that, because I captured some moments where Smeedy was playing, I think, using my thing, but of course, we ended up having to delete the clips because that microphone issue. But so that's an option, and I guess this is something we'll discuss once the stream is over. But we will need to to discuss what we want to do for E3, because that's next week.
Oh yeah. I'm all for it.
Well, hold on. Well, it's not next week. It's the week after next.
You're right.
Today's Saturday, which is Saturday is such a weird day, because you say next week, you say 2 weeks from now, because the next week is actually very, very close. So it's actually about 2 weeks away, but it's close enough. So to where it kind of fits saying next week. So we'll have to discuss what we're going to do for that, because unfortunately at this point the TTV PSN fan community is sort of kind of dead a little bit. Hopefully now that school's about to be out for everyone, it'll liven up a little bit. But the last couple times we tried putting game nights together, there's just been no one there. Yeah, it's like, hey, how does this game sound? Radio silence. How's this game sound? Radio silence. Okay, we're going to do this. Speak up, forever hold your peace. Radio silence. Okay. I guess no one's up for it right now. So, which is unfortunate, but
yeah, I do hope it's just people being busy with finals or something like that. It's probably what it is, I would imagine. But I mean, next Saturday's EA Play, so that's kind of E3, but not E3.
So yeah, I mean, EA Play usually sort of kind of kicks things off. It's the day, it's like the day or two before it officially starts, but everyone just kind of counts it as starting then. So but although EA Play is very small this year compared to years previous.
Yeah, no press conference.
Well,
which
actually,
probably for the better.
E3 in general this year is actually kind of small, because there's no Sony. There's EA Play is going to be shorter. Microsoft will be there, but there's not going to be any Nintendo. I don't think Bethesda has a conference. Square Enix has a
doing
conference.
One. Bethesda is
are
doing
they?
one.
Okay.
I don't know what they're gonna show though, aside from things that are already announced.
They're going to show a cinematic trailer for Starfield or whatever the heck they call that game, and say it's going to come in 2021 or something like that. When they still haven't actually started on the game, something like that. But
hello there,
Ubisoft.
Hello there, Teen Ross. I apologize for that complete butchering of a name. Now that is an interesting question. Do you like the game so far? Are we talking about the new Modern Warfare or Modern Warfare Remastered? Actually, no, the new Modern Warfare makes more sense, because I was reading the question. Host migration. I was reading the question.
What's with this map and host migration? Does no one like this map?
I guessed correctly, because can't talk. When I read the question, I, for whatever reason, thought of Modern Warfare Remastered, and I was like, that's a weird question. Considering I played it since 2008 with the original. But as for the new one, we've had a lengthy discussion
Yeah,
about
you're
that.
late, buddy.
Yeah,
You're late, pal. That's been the entire stream.
yeah. As a sort of summary, we are very optimistic so far. We do like.
I would say I'm
things we've heard.
cautiously optimistic, but
Yeah.
optimistic nonetheless.
Yeah. Optimistic, definitely. No, that.
So are you still on host migration?
No. Oh,
no.
you're not in the lobby. I see now.
Oh no, I think my game may have froze or something.
Oh no.
Well, I mean, I'm still in the party, so. Well, maybe we've been going a while, maybe, and we've kind of started moving on to other topics, so maybe it's time to wrap up anyway.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of other things related to the new Modern Warfare. Well, we haven't mentioned that there's not gonna be any zombies this year, which is a good thing.
I think you mentioned it. I think that's all there is. I think that's all there is to mention.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I did read somewhere that apparently whatever the co-op mode will be, apparently the story of the campaign will lead into the co-op mode, but
oh no, that's interesting.
I don't know what that means
so, yeah,
exactly.
Well, Spec Ops is back most likely. Hopefully that comes with survival. So.
Yeah, that seems to be the most likely scenario. And there's only one enemy on the team. There's only one person on the enemy team, and there's 3 of us. And now the enemy just left, so it's enemies forfeiting in 15 seconds.
5, 4, 3. Oh no.
Yeah, really the only thing I can think of, and that's not even related to Modern Warfare, but we were. Oh wait, let's see. Scale 1 to 10. How realistic you think it's going to be based on the trailer?
Well, I mean that's the thing. It's a video game, so how realistic can it actually get? Because it still has to be a video game. It still has to be fun. So, and then there's just some limitations we have with video games now. Based on that trailer, because it said it was all in-game footage. So, and from previews like the Ryan McCaffrey preview from IGN, that seemed like there's going to be some new gameplay mechanics that are almost sort of kind of similar to Rainbow Six Siege in a way. Of course not completely, to where you can actually open doors and open them slowly or just go hard breaching in, stuff like that, which is very interesting. So I mean, they're adding things like that, but at the same time, you're still probably going to be a bullet sponge on the easiest difficulties. You're going to be able to take 100 rounds and then lay behind cover, and then your screen will go red and it'll slowly get back. You're going to be a superhuman commando. It's not going to be a one-shot and you're dead game unless you're playing on veteran difficulty, in which case you will not survive. As the tagline says, trust me, I just played through all 3 Modern Warfare games on veteran difficulty. You will not survive. In terms of like this is kind of something we were talking about earlier. In terms of like the potential controversial moments, stuff like that, I think there will be some more quote-unquote realism. I think there'll be. I think plausibility in certain cases is a better word to use than realistic. Just like, oh yeah, I could see that happening in terms of like terrorists doing something or other, or commandos getting in trouble for some sort of raid they did or something like that. I think plausible may be a better word than realistic. But yeah, I think it's going to be an 8 or 9. Just because of stuff like that, and also because it has to be a video game that has to be fun to play, and it's also still Call of Duty, so there's also going to be the over-the-top moments. Like it's a remake of the original Modern Warfare, so I don't think they're going to actually do this. I don't think it's going to be like obviously from what we've seen, it's not going to be a beat for beat. because that's what we're playing. That's what we're playing right now is the beat for beat remake, where this is the reboot. I don't think they're going to have the exact moment, but I think they will have some sort of moment similar to the nuke going off, where the helicopter is spinning around and you're hanging on as it's spinning and stuff. I think they'll have something like that, just because that's cool, that's fun. It's exciting. War game, gotta sell those copies, so there's got to be some cool and exciting stuff, and there'll be stuff like that that'll probably drop the realism down a little bit, but.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe giving it two different scores. One for its the mechanics, and another for the narrative around it. Where I would say, like, mechanically, I don't know, 6 or 7. Narratively, I'd say, or I think it's going to be at least an 8. So and then kind of as a whole, I suppose 7 or 8. When it comes to realism or authenticity, or what's the other word I was thinking about? Plausibility and such. So, how do we feel about going on for a bit more, or calling it a day?
Well, considering the time on my end, and I'm hearing footsteps upstairs again, it may be, and also the way the discussion has progressed and stuff, I think maybe it's a better time. It's a good time now than ever to wrap it up, especially considering I just got booted out of the game because it froze or blue screened or whatever. I don't know what happened, but I just went ahead and closed the application.
Yeah.
This might be a good time to call it quits. Of course, you're the guy leading this, so it's your call, boss. But
yeah, I'll agree on that one, since I think we've exhausted pretty much everything that can be said about the new Modern Warfare.
Unless they drop some sort of new tantalizing information in the next 5 seconds.
Yeah. And of course, it's getting late over here as well. Hey, thanks for your comment and your subscribe. That makes me really happy. And no. I can't talk for whatever reason today.
Stop. Slow down. Start again.
No worries about joining late. That's kind of the nature of live streams, in a sense.
Yeah.
Especially with like different time zones and all. Like I think I found like good times that work for me. Since I'm as someone living in Europe that wants to have content that can be viewed by, at the very least, both European and American viewers. Of course, I don't mind any other continents, but it's just that I don't know the time zones all that well. And around this time, I feel works pretty well, since it's I feel it's the one that works best for me, both for my own schedule, but also for like time zones that I'm aware of. Also for having potential guests, and I feel like I was thinking about one other, but yeah. But even then, it's still never gonna be perfect, unfortunately. And as for for your also play Rainbow Six Siege. Yes.
Do we play Rainbow Six Siege? Does Ash have a head hitbox? Well, actually, that answer is no. So that's not a good something to pair it to. But the answer is definitely yes.
Yeah. we actually played Siege.
Does Fuse kill the hostage? That's a better one.
Yeah, Siege is a game we love. I actually streamed that about 2 weeks ago, actually. And it is a game that I do try to stream at least once every season because it's just such a great game. So yes, I do play Siege. A lot of Siege.
He's got some good siege videos on his channel you can check out.
That too, if you. I'm gonna stop you guys from playing hostage. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, you can't stop us from playing hostage. The game does that on its own by choosing bomb over and over and over and over.
Oh, yeah. But
honestly, of the 3 game modes, hostage is probably the one that pops up least. It's usually secure area, or bomb pop up way more often than hostage ever does. So.
Yeah. Let's see. Modern Warfare never gonna be on top of Siege. It's well, that's the thing. Even though they're both shooters, I do play them for very different reasons. That being said, I do think it's even though I'm very optimistic for the new Modern Warfare game, it's gonna take a lot for it if it's gonna trump Siege, and even if it ends up being a great game, I do think I'm still gonna hold Siege in a very, very high regard.
Yeah, I'll agree with that statement. The only thing I'll add is that Rainbow Six Siege specifically, I do not think we would have if it were not for Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. You would not have Siege if it were not for that game. So,
which is actually
you gotta give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I know the Rainbow Six video game series predates Call of Duty, but Modern Warfare 4. Even today I still do it. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was so revolutionary for the FPS genre that a lot of video games, a lot of first-person shooter games nowadays, you have to give that game credit even if you don't particularly like Call of Duty just because of what it did. Because I mean it's commonplace nowadays, but mixing the RPG type stats of leveling up your character and stuff in a first-person shooter, unheard of before 2007. Now every first-person shooter game does that. You have your rank that's not tied to your ranked playlist. Yeah, rank in Rainbow Six. I guess that's probably as far as it really goes in Rainbow Six. But Battlefield, you can level up your character and stuff, and you unlock new weapons and everything, and all of that. So really, shooters as they are today would not be the way they are without Call of Duty 4. So
yeah, it's interesting as well as true that we wouldn't have Siege without Modern Warfare, which is also funny because we probably wouldn't have Modern Warfare if it wasn't because of the original Rainbow Six game, as well as all these Tom Clancy novels. So it's funny how things work out.
They all feed into each other and help each other out and stuff. It's like sometimes it's fun. I completely understand because I do this myself sometimes. But to pick and choose a side and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I always think back to Kevin Butler on stage at E3 2010 when he says, "We may pledge fanboy allegiances to one box or the other, but at the end of the day, we all serve one king, one master." Gaming forever may he reign. So you may choose one shooter over the other. You may like PlayStation better than Xbox, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, you are still a gamer. You still like video games. So we share a camaraderie in that. So if you can, debate all you want, but it's like at the end of the day, hey, let's help each other out. You want to take these innovations that we did in Call of Duty 4? Do it. We'll just steal your rappel lines one of these days. You watch Call of Duty 2022 introducing the rappel line.
And with that being said, it's time to end end this stream and call it a day. So I have been LokaCola, joined by
Princess 1215?
no, not Fortnite.
Oh, yeah. We gave up. Well, not true. I gave up Fortnite months ago. At this point, this particular person hosting the stream right here, he played it about 3 weeks ago on a stream. So but yeah, we've pretty much given up. We've pretty much given up Fortnite at this point. It's no bueno.
So. What were you gonna say before I screamed in the air?
I just said you said I was LokaCola and I was Prentice 1215. Other than that, I didn't really plan on saying anything. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. There's most likely not gonna be a stream next week. Simply because next week is my final week of school, so I'm gonna 100% prioritize that to make sure everything is finished and all that, so I can actually go on summer holiday and maybe finish that Spider-Man. That would be great. So don't expect a stream next week, since either I'm gonna be sitting there fighting with a paper until the last the last seconds on Sunday evening, or I'm just gonna be so done with it that I don't feel like streaming. So yeah, don't expect any streams for next week. But the weekend after that, I should be back in relative full motion, and that will be also E3 time, so there's probably gonna be E3 related stuff potentially. But yeah, thank you for joining. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, like Tijan Rose did. I'm so sorry that I'm butchering your name. Hugely appreciated. You can also follow me on Twitter at LokaCola. A link is in the description down below. If you, for whatever reason, want to follow my shenanigans on Twitter, I don't know why you would, but it's there. And
it's in Swedish, so.
And yeah, that's all I have for today, and I'll see you all next time.